Welcome, everybody. Good evening. I'm Dan Sickle, Chair of Sherborn Advisory. This is the Sherborn Advisory Committee meeting of March 5th, 2025. As per usual, we'll start with a read of the agenda and approval of the agenda, and then we'll jump right in. I'm going to do a screen share of the agenda in just a second here. So everyone. So for the agenda, we'll start with advisory reports. We'll get to approving previous meeting minutes, and then want to switch the order just a little bit. I think we'll do the revenue piece first. Then I think we'll do town hall meeting room furnishings. Then I think we'll do the museum. Then we'll do information technology, and then we'll do the assessor articles. And I also want to just mention, I want to propose again a small addition, which is as part of our advisory reports, I want to again talk a little bit about the public hearing and just do a little more setup and have a little more conversation amongst committee members on that. Anybody with any other changes to propose to the agenda?
No.
I welcome a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Seconded.
And let's do a quick roll call. Shelley?
Aye.
Norma?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Stephen?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. So that gets us at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, great. All right, very good. So for advisory reports.
Dan, can you run through who's in the room? Sorry.
Yes, so at the table, can you see who's at the table, Doug?
I can, but it's on the screen, so I'm kind of guessing.
Stephen Bonder is here, Penn Young's here,
Yep.
Laura Howenstein's here, I'm here, Mike Winters is here,
Great.
Nora Lynch-Smith and Shelley Suber.
Great.
And then about 8 or so people in the audience. I think you'll hear from many of them later in the meeting.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so I think on advisory reports, I think I want to go last on that because I've got a bunch of things. Anybody with anything to bring and share with the committee? Stephen?
Not sure if this is the appropriate spot in the meeting. You were kind enough to send out the notice of the public hearing for March 22. I have 2 questions about it, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. One is that we're anticipating this to be a hybrid and in-person meeting. Has there been any thought about only making it an in-person meeting?
So I would be very reluctant to do that. I think there are people for whom the Zoom option is really, really valuable. I'm hoping people come in person. But I think I'm welcome to hear from other committee members, but I think there are a lot of people for whom the Zoom option is important. I think there might even be some presenters who, for one reason or other, can't be here in person. And I think there are also people for whom coming here can be a bit of a challenge, and it's going to be an 8:30 to 5 meeting. And so some people would just, particularly if they want to just, there's one thing they want to comment on, might not want to hear for most of the day.
The reason why I bring it up is because I'm not sure what the status is about the hybrid Zoom option expiring.
End of the month.
End of the month.
End of the
Okay,
month.
so we're getting it right underneath the wire.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
And the legislature may, in the next couple of weeks, extend that. And if they don't, then for anything after March 31st, we'll have to do something different. But with respect to that, we're fine for the 22nd.
Okay, very good.
Sorry, go ahead.
If it's on this topic, please.
Yeah, same topic. I'm just wondering if we can request that the committee chairs that are presenting show up. I get it. If they can't, they can't, but I think we should ask them to.
Yeah, so I always encourage people to come in person for this. I mean, I will do that if they're able to. And I typically do that for our meetings too.
Okay, we just had many meetings where we determined
Yeah.
that the committee chairs were at home, in town, whatever.
Yeah,
Not
people's
here.
lives are complicated, and I don't want to
Yep.
try to second guess those decisions. Stephen, go ahead. What was the other point?
My last question is, maybe we could consider the very last sentence of the notice where we're saying the articles will be considered in order. And in order to give the chair flexibility, perhaps we should change that or eliminate that they'll be in order and be silent about it.
So, yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, in a certain dimension, I'd be happy doing that. In another, when things are out of order, there have been complaints in the past because people want to kind of anticipate when their thing might come up and when should they be at town hall in the morning or the afternoon. And if we take things out of order, somebody thought it was going to be in the afternoon, but we ended up doing it in the morning. And there have been complaints about that in the past when
Right.
I suggested doing what you just suggested and people got unhappy about it.
Well, I hear that. I think writing it binds us to doing it in order, and being silent gives you the flexibility, not necessarily meaning that you won't do it.
Other views on that?
I agree with hybrid. I agree with you, Dan, on the Zoom option for sure. And I would have to defer, I would think it should be in order. I really do. People plan on coming at certain time periods. I think to deviate from that. I mean, how would we deviate? Why would we deviate?
Because there may be something that's non-controversial that we could just get done quickly. And
So it's still in order.
It's quick,
you mean-
it'll be quick when we get to it.
that's true, but sometimes you like the flexibility.
Let
But
me-
if the other parties don't agree, that's fine. I'm just making it,
Yeah, yeah.
putting it on the table, that's all.
Stephen, let me jump to a related topic that was part of what I wanted to talk about with our discussion about this. So something that we have the option of doing that would, I think, facilitate and speed up parts of the meeting and generate additional time for further discussion on the articles on which I think there'll be a lot of discussion is we could do consent agendas where, for example, the first 7 articles on the warrant, I think, are going to be pretty non-controversial. So rather than doing each of those individually and having public comment, advisory discussion, more public comment and advisory vote, we could lump them and group them all together and do them as one. And I think they won't be, I think, for example, those wouldn't be controversial, I think, on the committee. And I think also, wouldn't be controversial with other people attending the hearing. With the articles going in order, then we're a little bit more limited in how to do that, because then we'd have to take blocks of articles that are contiguous, rather than just kind of picking this one and that one and that one. I thought about that, and I liked the idea of doing that because I thought it would facilitate things. But then I weighed it against what Nora said of that people have an expectation and want to be able to plan a little bit of when to come to the meeting. And that made me think, yeah, we'll do some consent agendas, but maybe in a more limited way so as to still go after the articles in order.
You're suggesting consent agendas of blocks that are all as already presented?
Yes,
Already
in the
listed.
order they are in the warrant. And just as a flag, so I was thinking about, would welcome feedback on this. I'm guessing we're on 1 to 7, which are all the intro articles of the reports and OPEB and supplementals and things that I think wouldn't be controversial. And I was also thinking of some of the capital items that, again, if there's a sense that we're all sort of on the same page and they don't seem controversial, we may be able to group some of those together in a consent agenda. I would only want to do that if there was a sense that pretty much unanimity on the committee. If there isn't, then we should really take the time to discuss each one individually. So let me suggest, I will send around shortly, either tonight or tomorrow, the latest version of the warrant. It's not very different than the one that you saw before. It has page numbers and a few other, I think, small word tweaks. And let me ask everybody on the committee to take a look at that and think about if there are groupings of articles that you think wouldn't be controversial, and then maybe next week we could have we could have a specific conversation about that and see if kind of there's a consensus on the committee of, yeah, here's some things we could group together that everybody would be comfortable doing that with. Pen.
Shelley was-
Oh, Shelley, sorry.
No, you just saw me.
Hey,
first.
bouncing around.
I noticed, Dan, I'm having trouble getting my computer to connect, but I'm looking at this. I noticed we don't have a continuance date listed in this letter. Should we have one just in case we go over? Because I know there was some conversation about it. We have one for the public
We do.
hearing.
Yes, and
Yeah, we
it
don't
is
have one for this that I can find.
we don't have one for which?
March 22nd.
We do, so.
Oh, we do? Where is it in the
And-
letter? I don't,
It,
is
it is in the letter.
it the April 29th?
It's the it's the March 24th.
Okay. I
So there
missed
should
it.
be a reference,
It's in the top.
yeah, there
Doesn't
should be a
do it.
reference. So the continuation for,
Oh, at the very top,
Yes.
underneath the very,
for,
okay. I didn't-
for everyone who's
yeah.
dying to know.
I was looking for it down where you had the date of it at the bottom.
Yeah,
Okay.
if we can't get all our business done on Saturday, March 22nd, the public hearing,
Okay,
everybody is always so enthusiastic about coming back for more.
got it.
So
Okay,
that would be on Monday,
the
the
24th.
24th.
Got it.
We would do it at 7, and we're gonna do it just on Zoom. So
Okay,
my hope is that we can get all of the business done in the one day. But if we need to come back for a couple hours to finish up, we will do that. We will do that on Zoom, given the uncertainties of whether we're gonna do it or not and get a space and all of that.
okay, sorry, I just didn't.
No, that's great. That's great. I'm glad you brought it up because a week ago that hadn't been sorted out and now that is the date.
Okay,
And there's also a town meeting on April 29th. There's a continuation date for that a couple days later as well, if town meeting can't get all the business done in that first day. Pen.
I'm just gonna, I don't need to circle back too much, but if we're gonna streamline and if we're gonna keep things in order, you know, I mean, I really like the idea of in person. And I don't know if those allow us to make it a little easier. People will have a better sense of when to come. I understand the argument for hybrid, but I think there's an argument for in person as well.
For exclusively in person?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not there. I just think that that would be a real break from our tradition with meetings. I think it would be a break from other boards and committees in town. And I think for the public hearing, pretty important, high profile event, I would just be really reluctant to do something completely different than how it's been done in the past. I mean, I get the argument,
Right.
and the appeal of doing that. And who knows, if the legislature doesn't act, by April, we might all be in that world.
Mhm.
But I think I would be reluctant to, before that, make a jump to something so different from what our tradition was.
I concur.
Laura?
Would you guess that if there are people that really want to make a point, they will come in person anyway?
I think many people will. I do think there are people who will be on Zoom who will chime in with, who will have comments and important things they want to add. I mean, in recent years, we did the whole public hearing on Zoom and had plenty of active engagement on Zoom.
You missed it.
I'm good with that.
Okay. So that was it for me on the public hearing, if people are okay
I
with.
just have one more question, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's come up a couple times just in advisory meetings. If, are we giving time estimates for people to have a sense as when? Because if I'm just, for example, like I know we've had to do these out of order, even though on our agendas.
Yep.
Sometimes the presenter's not here at the time.
Yep.
So is there like a default, they'll just go to the very end? Or we just, when they become available, we just squeeze them in between other warrants, like other items that we're reviewing? I mean, because it would give people, like if you missed your 1 o'clock time and we're scheduled to go till 5:30, well, now you should anticipate that you'll be going at 5:30 or?
So that's a good question. I hadn't really thought about that one. That's a good question. I mean, my hope is that people are here, either, for their articles. I guess I'd probably be inclined to just move them to the end if they're not here.
Okay, well, maybe, I don't know if we're gonna give people like these are all the things we're going through, we're estimating, you'll be in this
Yeah.
like hour block, you'll be somewhere in there. It's hard to say with some of the items that are
Yeah,
longer.
I mean, I spent a lot of years doing economic forecasting at the Federal Reserve. I'd be a little scared to try to forecast how much time.
Should have been scared then.
Oh, I was plenty scared.
We could do it in the form of pools. Have a betting pool on that.
Well, maybe
Well,
something to just think about and we
Yeah.
can talk about it next time. It has happened in a couple of these meetings and I felt bad that people
Yeah,
weren't
got it.
here when they were showing up on the thing
Yep.
and they had to wait till the very end and the meeting went for 3 or 4 hours.
Yep, yep,
But if people already, if the expectation's set, then hopefully people
right, yeah.
will be on time.
So
Okay,
maybe when I send, kind of invite reminders to people, maybe I can say something about that. But I have to think of.
it'll be
I'm-
taken out of order if you're not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that
Yes.
people are here and we don't get there, but you're right. that could-
100%, I'd hope the
that
same
could-
thing.
That could
But
happen.
things happen.
Um,
You
Okay.
can also do it in Windows.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the benefits of Zoom is for somebody who wants to be here in person, if they think they're gonna be up in the afternoon, they could check in at 10 o'clock and see, well, how far have you gotten? They could check in at noon, how far have you gotten? Hey, I better get over there because they're moving faster than I expected, or this is going slow, maybe I can have a second cup of coffee after lunch or a second beer after lunch or whatever before, getting on to, yeah. Okay. Other advisory reports, I've got a few other things to,
Oh,
yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Nora and I met with Heidi today to go through some of the.
And Chris Kenny.
And Chris Canny to go through what to expect in their presentation next week with regards to zoning, the capital request, and also the warrant articles. So it seems to me 3 of them are mandated by the state. So if we're not in compliance, there are some repercussions for that.
Consequences, yeah.
And they'll go through those 3 items. And then there is another that is, it's more broad in terms of encompassing many issues within the bylaws to get them in compliance with the state bylaws. So it's more of a housekeeping, but it's not just one thing. It's like a number of things that they'll go through, but generally it's housekeeping. And they're going to go through that with us on the 12th.
Good.
And they've also, I think that Doug, you're meeting with the 2 of them next week, maybe?
Monday.
Monday, and anybody else that wants to sit in and meet, they're meeting, I think, at 11.
I think I'm gonna
They-
try to join that too.
Yeah, they'll make themselves available just so that it's not all new.
Yeah.
Maybe hearing it a couple times will help it. Because
That's-
we were there for a few hours, so
That's
Was it
great.
that long?
Thanks.
it was 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't counting, but yeah, it's detailed,
It was
so.
good. It was
Yeah,
really
no, it's good. I'll appreciate hearing it a second time.
And what was your forecast of how many hours it would be? Just no.
I didn't forecast, so I
She
just wanted to
budgeted
let you
an
know
hour for
that.
you
that-
guys.
Yeah.
No, that's great, Shelley. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
really
I was
helpful.
asking a lot of questions.
And great that Heidi and Chris have been willing to make
Yes.
this available to
They're happy
do
to.
that, to help make sure everybody, understands what's in those articles. Okay, Stephen.
I'm sorry to ask this question. When does this group receive revised budgets and roll-up?
So I think Jeremy is gonna do a roll-up next week. And I think that will fold in everything that's new. If it'd be helpful, we certainly could distribute a full set of, budgets for the ones that have changed. Thus far, I think changes are relatively modest. I think the library is gonna come back next week and they're gonna talk to us with something, a different proposal. And I think there may be, I'm aware of one other department that might be doing that too.
I can think of 2 things.
Yeah,
One is, I don't know that I've seen where the dispatch fee is gonna be living, the 80-some odd
Oh,
thousand for
yeah.
the dispatch
okay,
services.
yep,
And the other one that I think might be changing potentially is Board of Health. I think there's some
Yeah.
kind of shared services.
that was
for-
the other one that I
Yeah,
was
okay.
referring to, yeah. So why don't we plan on then, before our meeting next week, one, as I said, Jeremy's gonna do a roll-up. And we can just send an updated set of budgets around.
That'd be great.
And there may be one more round before the public hearing, because things could certainly change between March 12th and March 22nd. Yeah, okay, sounds good. Anybody else? Yeah, Pat.
Something came up, actually over the weekend, and it sort of reverberates, if that's the word, with something that actually happened back in January, which I wish I'd mentioned more strongly. But back in January, when the library cut their hours,
I don't want to get into a big library discussion. I'm going to save that for next week because that's not on the agenda. So if it's just a point of information, that's great. If it's more than that, we should save it.
well, okay, here's my point of information. The library posted that notice on the 24th of January. The Friends sent out an email on Saturday, sent it out widely. But what I wanted to point out was that Shelley and I, who are the two library liaisons, are, as far as I know, we each got that to our advisory addresses. And as far as I know, we're the only people who got it to our advisory addresses. I know at least several members of advisory didn't get it at all. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, good, thanks. And we will have a full discussion of the library new budget proposal and all that goes with that next week.
Right, I appreciate that, and I just think it less of a budget thing and more of a, this is a, I don't know how to characterize it, but just, feels business between them and advisory in a way that's not budget related directly.
Yeah, so let's save that for a library discussion next week.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good, okay, thanks. Anybody else? All right, so I have a few more. Let's see, what else did I have? Let's see, so public hearing will start at 8:30 on March 22nd. I will tomorrow post agendas for all of those things so they become official. I was gonna post for advisory for an 8:15 meeting because sometimes there is a little bit of a discussion that advisory wants to have prior to the public hearing. So if needed, we might start at 8:15 with the public hearing starting at 8:30. Remember next week, our March 12th meeting, it's at the police station, it's not here. I will automatically come here, but that would be the wrong place. This room's gonna be having some renovations done, so at the conference room at the police station next week.
Is that like obvious where to find that? I've never been in the police station.
Go past the town hall.
Okay, but you just walk in the police
Yeah,
station.
it'll
and
be
it's
Yeah,
right
take a
there.
look.
It'll be
when you walk
it'll
in.
be obvious. Yeah, it's just the conference room is just right near the front. Yep. And for our, thanks to Jackie Morris for our advisory hearing, we will have cardboard tent cards with our names, which will help, I think, people identify who each of us are. I probably should have brought them tonight, but they're still sitting on my desk at home.
Hey, Dan, if the meeting's at the police station, will there be an officer there to let us in because the door is locked?
There'll be access.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Thank-
there'll be access.
Excuse me, Dan, who were thanks to?
Jackie Morris did that for us.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And let's see, one of the things that's popped up is that I think some of us have sent emails to department heads as liaisons. And apparently the town has filtering software that put some of those into spam folders, which was most unfortunate. But just to say, if we're sending emails to people and you're expecting a response, and I know this has come up on a couple different things and you don't get a response, it would be worth reaching out to that person again, because it might be that emails landed in spam folders. So just kind of just a mention about that, since I think that messed a couple bits of communication up this budget season, when apparently it's a very stringent filter. And whatever, so I wanted to just mention that.
Just put not spam in the body and that'll work.
Yeah, could try that. And then one other thing that just request for committee members to think about in the public hearing, right? Advisory members can call a hold on any item including in the operating budget, when I will read every department's dollar amount. And advisory members can call a hold. Different set of rules for town meeting, but on our public hearing, it's all of us who can call holds. So obviously, everyone should feel, completely, it's completely appropriate to call a hold on anything that you want to have more discussion about. I would just say it would be helpful for me if you could give me a heads up. No requirement to do that, because obviously things may change in the course of a meeting. But for me to kind of keep a score sheet of votes and just to kind of keep track of everything that has happened, it's helpful for me to know that ahead of time. So if you know that you want to call a hold on a particular line item or department, no requirement, but if you're willing, it would help me out if you could give me a heads up. I just wanted to mention that too. Okay, so that's it for me for advisory reports. So unless anybody has anything else, let's jump to minutes. So February 26th minutes circulated. Anybody have any changes to propose?
Thank you, Shelley.
This was Shelley who,
No, I was hand frantically.
who without,
My computer.
yeah, and without expecting it, kindly agreed to take minutes for that meeting.
Thank you, Shelley.
So if not, I
Mind
would,
you, she traded me for the one next week, so
Yeah.
it's just.
I would welcome a motion with respect to the minutes.
Motion to accept the minutes. And Stephen?
Second,
And quick roll call. Stephen,
Aye.
Penn,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Nora,
aye.
Shelley,
Hi.
and I am, Doug.
Aye.
And I am I as well. Okay, so that gets us 8-0 on minutes. Great. Okay. So Deb, I think we want to go to the just quick overview of revenue next. So this is a new thing for advisory to talk about. Typically, we talk about the items that are going to come up at the public hearing, and revenue is not one of the items that comes up at the public hearing because it's not something that, advisory approves or that the town at town meeting approves, but thought it would be interesting and valuable to gain a little more perspective on, in particular, the non-property tax chunk of the revenue, property taxes being about 90% of the town's revenue, these other sources being about 10%. I have a spreadsheet I can share if that would be helpful. Give me just a second, get that set. Sorry, I thought I had this all ready to go, and I didn't quite.
Not heard bells in a while. Have you heard bells in a while?
It's not you, it's a judge.
And should be coming up. Okay, here we are.
Okay, so as Dan mentioned, this isn't anything that is voted on. It is something that is done during the course of the tax rating setting. Although, like when you look at the spreadsheet here, when you look at the FY26 projected, that was the revenue number that Jeremy had included on his overall roll-up, if you will, just so that we could get an idea if we were hitting the levy limit or not. So that projected is actually the only thing that is variable on this spreadsheet. Everything else is history. So you can see like there's really, this local revenue only represents about, maybe 5.5% of our total revenue stream. As Dan said, most of it is property. So when you look at this, there's really not a whole lot of leeway. What we try to do is basically just stay with, DLS guides us to stay within 10% of the prior year actuals. So that's pretty much what we do unless we know that there is something that at the year-to-date actual is already changed. So that's kind of how we guide everything for this projection. I think we put in a modest 3% increase, except for the investment income. And the investment income obviously can fluctuate wildly. And we're just kind of keeping it at modest compared to prior years, but it's really anybody's guess where that's going to end up. I don't know if you have any questions.
Did you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Deb. It's a good summary. So what's on the screen here represents one of the 3 revenue sources that offset the town expenses, that being what they call local receipts. And the various types of local receipts are what's itemized up on the screen. All told about 1.9 million in local receipts, which represents, as Deb mentioned, about 5.5% of all of the town revenue. The other 2 sources being property taxes, representing a little bit over 90%, and state aid, which is about 3.5%. So, up on the screen here is just that 5.5% group called local receipts. The biggest portion of the local receipts is the number 1 item up there, which is motor vehicle excise taxes, which is about half of the total local receipts. So, that alone can swing actual revenue for local receipts in a big way if that changes. Many of these items are really driven by outside economic factors, such as motor vehicle sales. So it's sort of the way that we're asked to forecast it by DLS is essentially within 10% of prior years. So overall, for local revenue, we're comfortable with a higher end of that, meaning overall local receipts, we're projecting to increase a little over 8%, mostly driven by, estimating or allowing us to capture a bit more interest income or investment income.
Thanks. So, questions? Penn, you want to start?
I had a very modest question, since I'm keeping the minutes. DLS stands for?
Oh, Division of Local Services, sorry.
No.
I guess I have a question, which is, if your projection is based on, a large part of it is investment income, and can be very volatile, what happens if the revenues don't come in as projected?
That is why we're conservative in these estimates necessarily. You can see the actuals, on the right side of that spreadsheet, those columns are the actuals received for the years. And you'll see the actuals for investment income have been quite a bit more recently than what we forecast. So we're comfortable, even with a decline in investment income, we're still comfortable that overall we will meet this target.
Other questions or comments? Stephen?
I'd like to try to get a better understanding about federal and state grants and how they flow through the financial statements.
Yeah.
So just as an example, let's take something called Police CCIT-TTAC program.
Yeah.
Where we received a couple $100,000. So is that revenue reported in the financial statements?
It's captured in the financial statements, but it's not a source of operating. This is all operating budget revenue that we're talking about on the screen.
Okay.
Those are, special revenue funds that have expenses charged directly against them outside of the operating budget. What you mentioned is for support for the police department.
Right.
And it's a grant that we've received that allowed us to partner with neighboring communities to provide some more service for, to support the police department work. And expenses directly related to that grant are charged directly to that grant.
And those expenses also don't appear in the operating
Correct.
budget.
They don't
So
operate,
neither
those
revenue nor
expenses
the
don't appear
expenses.
on the operating budget at the police department, nor do the revenues. It's a special revenue outside of the operating budget. But it should show up in some way on the financial statements. And we'd need to dig in a little deeper to explain.
Okay, so
where
that's
where
kind of
that
a
is.
piece that I'm not quite understanding yet. And I don't want to say that I would call it off books, but it's not something I think that this group gets a good look at about what those grants are. And I guess a question might be, we may have received a grant for something that we're now going to be incurring on a continuing cost. And I assume that's in the operating budget.
It would need to be if it
It
was
would need
gonna
to be in the operating budget, but there may be something that we got a grant for that we want to continue those expenditures, but the budget maker didn't necessarily ask for it. So I don't know if there's some other kind of report we can get on a quarterly basis to kind of understand what the non-operating activity is that's flowing through the town.
Yeah, I'm sure that we could come up with something. Yeah, not only the invisible side, but the school side receives
Substantial sums.
substantial sums of
Right.
funds that are not through the operating budget, which don't specifically require appropriation or approvals through town meeting. However, as you said, they do offset some service provided.
So that's something that comes through the state is reporting it both from the cherry sheet side and there's also money that's coming in and money we have to give back.
So the cherry sheet, that does impact.
That's on the operating
Your
side,
operating
right.
budget. So yeah, the cherry sheet are your state aid, and there's offsets to the state aid
Right,
that show up on the cherry sheet. They call it the cherry sheet because it used to be printed on paper.
right.
But there's offsets like the mosquito control district
Right.
is charged from that. So it offsets some of the state aid that we get. The state giveth and the state taketh away.
So for example, chapter 70 education,
Would show up in the cherry sheet.
but doesn't show up in what we see as receipts, does it?
Sure.
it's
It
in-
shows up
it's
not
in-
on local receipts, it shows up in state aid.
But not on the spreadsheet that you just gave us.
No, these are local receipts.
Okay. Is there another source of revenue that funds the operating budget?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
there's state aid in general, like not on this spreadsheet. State aid in general, you got unrestricted government aid,
Right.
you got chapter 70, state library. That's about it, and that represents 3.5% of your revenues.
Okay, so has there been a number issued by the state yet for fiscal 26?
No. There's been guidance given. We won't know what we're gonna get from the state for another couple of months.
So they approve an FY '26 budget.
And that's
So we
both to
have,
the
you know, the
regional.
governor, House One, the first bill filed in the House, the State House is the proposed FY '26 operating budget. That's been filed and the governor has filed similar. But that gets vetted over the next several months, which includes things like chapter 70 and unrestricted government aid.
So could we, if it's easy enough to do, get a revised recap of revenue, including both local receipts and state federal grants that fund the operating budget?
Sure.
Thank you.
That is captured in the roll-up that was presented, I believe it was a few meetings ago, I went
I
through
think,
the
I
roll-up.
think you have a line for state aid in there.
But certainly could capture
But I think
that.
it'll be helpful on this spreadsheet to
Yeah, this spreadsheet captures the local receipts
right.
only.
Does it capture rec?
Yep, it would be something, well, not revolving fund revenue. That's
Right.
another thing.
Just
Revolving funds
curious.
are not what we just talked about.
Okay.
But it does capture fees like building permit fees and other things that are part of the general fund.
I was just gonna add that I think, following Stephen's point, getting a bit more visibility into some of these things, I think would be interesting and valuable. Historically, I think the reason why some past and even, for example, this year's advisory committee hasn't really drilled into that is that, our charge is to advise town meeting on the articles that will appear at town meeting as kind of the group of people who do the work to dig in and try to provide some perspective for participants at town meeting who presumably aren't going to spend the number of hours that we're all spending to dig in. And so the things, Stephen, that you highlighted, some of them are things that don't come to town meeting. So advisory has often, we're just going to focus on things that are coming to town meeting. But I completely agree with your point that to get a full picture of the town's finances, those are important pieces.
And in particular, the reason why I'm asking is because we don't know if we can continue to count on those funds coming in.
Right. Right.
Given the current environment, and
Yeah.
without knowing, if one of those things fell off, we need to know that in order to address the
Yeah,
expenditure
absolutely.
side. So
Absolutely.
I
Yeah, I
think
mean, a good example is the dispatch, right? And that was funded by a grant, and now it's moving on to the operating budget.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we can recirculate this, I
Yeah.
think it would be very helpful.
Okay,
Yeah, and
we can work on that.
yeah, good. What else on this? All right, thanks, Deb. Thanks, Jeremy. That was helpful, I think, just to provide a little bit additional background and entree into some of the things that Stephen highlighted as ways of
Is it
getting
appropriate for me to ask
broader
about
view.
what the status is of the invoiced money for rec or no? Since we're talking to Deb?
Deb, do you have an update on that? I haven't seen one. I don't know where that stands.
Well, that is part of the revolving fund, so it wouldn't show up here anywhere.
Right.
But we did receive another $20,000 just last week for in-town field rental. So we're still waiting for a couple of invoices from some of the club field rentals.
So as
So-
far as 218, it looks like we're still owed about 170,000, 160.
Not quite that much. I don't have it here in front of me,
Okay.
but no, it's not quite that much.
Thank you.
I would have guessed if another 20,000 came in last week, I would have guessed the arrears are in the neighborhood of 60, but I don't want to, that's a guess.
Okay. I'm looking at.
Deb, does that sound like the right order of magnitude?
I think it might be a little bit more than that, but
Okay,
I would say
okay.
probably close to 80.
Okay,
Okay.
very good, thanks. Okay, all right, so let's wrap this up. Thank you for doing that. I know that hasn't been an item in the past, but I think helpful background. So want to next go to town hall meeting room furnishings, and Jeremy, are you taking the lead on that?
Yeah,
And I'm happy to share docs. if
sure.
you'd
So
like
what
me
was
to
shared, thanks, Dan. So there's a capital request to help, to refurnish this room, the small conference room downstairs, to refurnish this room, to make it, to refresh it. The furnishings in this room are aging, not very functional, useful for the meetings that do occur here. The chairs that you're in were actually cleaned, if you can believe it, about a month ago. Did not get all the stains out. I invited Christina Gallant, who's the Director of Council on Aging, in that the Council on Aging is a heavy user of this space. And we included in your backup materials just a summary of sort of an accounting of how many functions they hold in this space, which they need to set up and break down for. Please recall there's no building attendant for town hall. So all the setup of this space is done by the staff or the boards and committees that have a function here. Folks helped us set up for this meeting today and felt the heft of some of the green chairs in the back here. We're looking to refurnish. So the tables would be replaced with tables that would have a flip top table so that we get it on rollers, on actual rollers. And so we wouldn't just get them across the rug as we do now with these wooden tables. We could fold them up and roll them over into the corner or set them up in different configurations. a couple of vendors came by and gave us some cost quotations and did some conceptual layouts, which were included in the materials sent around to advisory. So yeah, I mean, that's the purpose of this capital article. I believe all told, we're asking for $25,000 funded by free cash. Christina, do you want to add anything as far as, activities that you folks do here?
Hi, sure. Yeah, real quick, just to give you an example, we had a history class yesterday where there were 40 participants. So as Jeremy said, we are setting up and then we're cleaning up at the end. We always like to leave the room the way that it was. But on average, like this week, we will have had over 70 people using this space. So we would love to have new furniture. I also, the green chairs are really heavy and they're not really the best chairs for our residents. And then the rolling chairs are not good for them. So we would love to look into getting some chairs that don't have wheels that also have arms for helping with our residents.
So
What's going to happen with these desks?
I will, anything that the town does, it will be offered up to other town departments should they need some furnishings or could be surplus. I think we've been searching around to see who actually built these pine tables and we haven't had much luck.
Someone over there might know. If they don't, no one does.
Maybe the Sherborn Historical Society can have them.
Probably serve some of our needs. I don't know. Betsy, do you know who made these? No idea.
Yeah, so
They've been around for a long time.
they've been here a while. We've done a number of repairs on them, at least in the short time I've been here. Legs have fallen off. They've seen a lot of use. And please, as far as the COA, one, an additional reason we're trying to make this space more functional is to, this is their only function space that they have under their sort of control. We don't have a separate COA facility, so we're trying to make the best use of this space possible.
It sounds like there hasn't been a choice of particular things that look like in the material that was sent around. A variety
There's
of
a
things
menu
that
of
still to
ideas
be
still floating.
determined exactly what
In general, there would be tables so that we could have board meetings set up with some privacy screens for those sorts of tables. They'd all be flip top so that they could be stored in the corner, all on rollers. Sizes may be varied so that we could set up, different configurations for this space. The chairs would be on carts for the audience in lighter, some with arms. We picked some colors that would be, in keeping with this space and Sherborn's colors.
And the chairs are going to go somewhere too?
What's that?
What happens with the green chairs?
We would offer them up to other town departments and
Okay.
other facilities and then surplus them, put them up to auction if nobody needed them.
When would you be hoping to get this done?
As soon as possible. So shortly after town meeting approves of the expenditure.
And I did scout out the bottom of these tables and they are not rare antiques. I can say that confidently.
I mean, they're very nice tables. They're nice, but they're not antiques. They're not of much value.
What sign?
I think Margot could use one of these right now. You could use one of these, organizing the tables.
We could use it right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So other questions for Jeremy or for Christina? Concerns, issues?
Just a question. Do you have so is the timeframe, when do you expect to have a sense or know, or be fairly certain about what you're actually going to purchase? Because are you basically asking for like 25K?
Yeah, well, from the prices that were given, and included in your materials, it essentially funds about 18 tables, 44 chairs. So that's sort of the overall, what we could afford, given the funding. which would furnish the space
And 18 tables of various sizes.
of various sizes on rollers with the flip tops.
And we have and I'm not trying to pin you down, I'm just curious, would you have a sense of, would you sort of make that wish list and then ahead of town meeting, and then if town meeting approves, just sort of like make the call? Or I'm trying to figure out the sense of the timing of when you'd be specific on what you want.
Well, the specific request is for the $25,000, which would essentially cover 18 tables,
Yeah.
44 chairs of the types provided in the backup materials.
Thanks.
Other issues, concerns, questions? Okay, thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Christina. So let's keep going. And we're next gonna get to museum. Doug, you wanna, and anyone else who would like to come on up, and I have your PowerPoint if you want me to share that on the screen. Whatever, or not, whatever,
Yeah,
whatever's gonna work
I
well.
think Yukon could probably share it on his screen, but either way would be great. So first of all, good evening. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for what you do. I know just listening and talking to Dan, you do a lot of work, and it's probably mostly thankless. So thank you for what you do for our town. I appreciate it. My name is Doug Brown. I'm a 20-year Sherborn resident, and I'm the new president of the Sherborn Historical Society. And I'm delighted to provide this update to you all this evening. I want to first introduce Yugon Kim, who's on our screen, who is our fabulous architect who has just been doing yeoman's work helping us with this project. We're going to spend the next 15 minutes talking to you, most of which will be with Yugon. I'm going to just set the stage in a few minutes, and then I'll turn it over to Yugon, who will walk you through the architectural plans, the cost details, and the work we've done over the past few weeks to really try to reduce the financial burden for the town based on some feedback we've received already. And of course, we welcome your questions after that. So if it's okay, I'll dive in. I'll start by acknowledging what I did for the select board, and that is just the tremendous energy that I think we all experienced from last year's 350th anniversary. It was a level of civic engagement that I hadn't seen in my 20 years, and most people I talk to share the same thing. And I think we have an incredible opportunity now with this project to build on that. This year represents another important anniversary that few people in town know about, and that is the 250th anniversary in June of when Eliezer Douse fled to Sherborn after fighting with his two sons in the Battle of Bunker Hill. He was burned out of his house, so he had to go somewhere, and we are incredibly fortunate that he came to this town. That began an unbelievable legacy of generosity to our town. Descendants of that first Douse have given us a high school, the 1858 townhouse, a library, and our beautiful memory statue. When William Bradford Homer Douse gave us the Douse Memorial Library in 1914, he asked for only two things in return. First, that we allow the library to be a center for education and sociability. And second, that the town provide a permanent home for the Sherborn Historical Society. As we've outlined in the timeline we gave to you, to just review some of the history, that commitment was explicitly reiterated by the town in 1938, 1971, and 1983, and the town has honored that commitment for over 100 years. I want to point out that the desire to accommodate the Sherborn Historical Society in 1914 wasn't just a passing or a fleeting comment. William Douse loved history. We learned from his obituary that his interests, especially in the latter part of his life, were largely historical. One of his proudest moments in his life was when he was elected to the Massachusetts Historical Society, perhaps because it had a beautiful remade library that was donated by his great uncle Thomas Dowse, also from Sherborn. And at the time, it was one of the best libraries in New England, and it remains there intact to this day. And that dapper gentleman in the corner who has been watching over your meetings, I'm sure you know, is Thomas Dowse. And that exact print is in the Mass Historical Society in that very room. William and Thomas both knew that mixing history and books was very powerful for a community. And indeed it is for us. The beauty of this project, as Yugon will explain, is that housing a history center in a library is mutually reinforcing. As people get books, they learn a little bit about history. As they learn about history, they want to read more books. And that's been true of me, by the way. I collect rare books, and that's been absolutely true. We have a number of exciting ideas for the History Center already in the works. There will be numerous exhibits with interesting themes like covering critical past elections, important anniversary celebrations of the town, life on the farm, and the history of Sherborn sports. We have ideas for supporting residents on projects of their own family histories, developing oral histories from our seniors, and many ways to connect the history to our children's learning. As you probably know, we have on our board and in our town, Kevin Delaney, who taught history to children in the Wayland system for 30 years and has been unbelievable. Our fundraising efforts are proceeding at a healthy clip. We have already raised $50,000 and have plans for a furniture yard sale in town this spring, the sale of over 100 Sherborn shillings made out of the wood from our oldest ash tree. You should be sure to buy one. And outreach efforts underway to potential donors, to our state representatives and community organizations for potential grant opportunities. And I'm really proud to say that our board, 100% of our board has already donated to the building fund. One last thing about our board, because I think it's a reflection of what we are seeing in our town. We have long-serving members like Margot Palicki, Betsy Johnson, and Martha Mahard, all of whom are with us tonight, who have given extraordinary amounts of their time over their life to our betterment. And I am continually inspired by their contributions and their service to our town. But we also have many new members like Megan Hermita Liu and Jane Branch, who are with us on Zoom, with young families who are getting involved because they see how important local history is to the growth and development of their own children. Finally, this is not just a history project, in our view. It is a community and civic engagement project at a pivotal moment in our town's journey. It will bring our community together for connection and learning and growth in new and exciting ways. And in that regard, it is precisely the dream that William Bradford Homer Dowse had in mind in 1914. And as stewards of his legacy, we are very proud to present it to you this evening. So with that, I will turn it over to Yugon, who hopefully can share his slides and take us through the drawings and the costs and what we've been up to.
Great, thank you, Doug. Hello, everyone. I'm Yugon Kim. I am excited to be able to present the progress that we've done together for the design of the History Center. Just to briefly, before I share my screen, as Doug said, we were just really excited to be invited to participate on this project, especially because of this idea of this synergy between a library and the History Center. And for me, libraries are one of the most community-oriented buildings, and history itself is just such a community shared event. We all live history together, we all occupy history together, and history will grow together with us. And so that's why we think of this as a perfect marriage. This History Center within a community library is just a wonderful marriage together. So I'll show the screen and walk you through some of the progress we have been doing. Everyone see my screen?
Yeah, you're good.
Great. So this is just a larger floor plan of the entire lower level. We have here in color the area where the proposed history center will occupy. As you can see, is very compact within the larger footprint of the basement level. If you zoom in a little bit more, this, as I'm sure many of you are familiar, are the stairwell from the upper level of the library coming down, where the kind of larger kind of meeting room is over here. And then there's this corridor that comes down this area, where currently this is a storage area for the library. And we have created this kind of moment where people can come into the space, and then this here will act as the kind of display community zone proper, where people have sight lines into the space, can walk down the corridor here, working with the existing conditions as much as possible to kind of minimize impacts to the budget. A small curator's office, an archive vault area that can really house and protect the collection, and a kind of research study area here, so that the work can be kind of observed and protected. So really walking down this corridor, this is the first kind of visual that we'll show. This is the area down when you first exit that corridor. And you can see here, this is what it looks like currently, with many exposed kind of infrastructure in the ceiling, exposed concrete columns, the concrete floor. So very industrial in look. And so our strategy here was try to be very strategic about how we use finishes, really leaving the bones of the building intact, trying to work around existing conditions and not make any large changes to the space from a kind of structural or system standpoint. So this is a view right here at the entry of the corridor. You can see here, this is this main access line where in the vista, you can see into the vault and really see the rich collection that Sherborn has, and then a view into the gallery at the end of the ramp, so that at times where the kind of history center is closed, people have a sight into the gallery itself. This is a view in. We started to populate and work with Martha to imagine what the opening exhibition may look like. The collection at the Sherborn History Center is diverse, rich, with artifacts, books of many different scales and backgrounds. And so we really are creating this rich and diverse display space that can house this collection. As you can see here, what we're really trying to do is leave all these systems in place because it's quite expensive to move them, and then use paint in a strategic way to then leave the ceiling exposed. And then in other areas, say in the display area, create very strategic use of finishes, so that then really it creates a connection between the library and then this space. This is a view that of the kind of gallery display space using graphics, objects, larger kind of millwork, really this kind of very rich collection being displayed in this space. One thing with working with Martha and the larger group, we really kind of loved how the community worked together to celebrate community stories. And we want to infuse the design with that as well. And so what we've proposed is almost a community wall where people might be able to self-curate and tell their own stories, similar to how they've been doing so on the website. This is another view as you exit, really having this distinct relationship between the circulation space and the gallery space. and then really trying to make the space multifunctional and allowing for programming and events to occur. And so you can see here, it can be easily transformed to be a more traditional display space, or really a kind of gathering space for lectures, workshops, and community get-togethers. And this is an overview of kind of all the views that you can see, really a transformation of that industrial space, but leaving much of the infrastructure intact. So here, I don't know if you can see my screen well. This is we have the project estimated, the completion. We did full documents with our team of engineers to have a estimator look at the drawings and provide a very detailed estimate. And so you can see here the way that it's structured. We have a renovation cost of a little over 600,000. Because it is a occupied renovation, there is a premium to that. Then there's general kind of percentages applied to that for general conditions and overhead, with this almost 300,000. And then at this SD phase, we apply a certain percentage of contingency, that some of it we bring through to the end of the project, some as the project develops, say in the design contingency, when we know more about the project, that percentage goes down and either funds the project or is removed from the project budget completely. We have soft costs in this zone here, which include design fees and reimbursables, and then a general owner's expenses here, and then some furniture, FF&E items here. All of these have contingencies at this early stage of the project. And then, so you can see here, this is the total cost of the construction cost with all the overhead plus contingency. And then the total of soft costs here, which totals is 1.36 million, $500,000 have already been funded. So at that point, this is the amount that was the project budget requested from the town. It is important to note that of this 1.27, almost 200,000 is still contingency.
Hugo, maybe before you get into the additional work you're about to talk about, I can just set a little context on what we've done. So we presented to the select board, we presented to the capital and budget committee. They had a bunch of questions for us, and the feedback we got, as I said in my summary email, which you may have received, everyone loved the concept, they loved the vision. There wasn't anyone we've talked to so far that wasn't excited by the prospect. But we heard a lot about hangover from the library. We heard a lot about the difficult financial condition this year for the town. And so we took back the responsibility to try to do whatever we could to save the town money. Our first decision was to decide whether we needed to change the vision anyway. And we made a decision, working, of course, with the town. We've been hand in glove with the town at every stage of the way. Again, because the vision has resonated so much with people, we wanted to keep the vision, but do everything we could to squeeze it. And so what we're going to talk to you about is that 1.27 number. We've been told by the town that they've had some ARPA funding that they've applied toward that. So 1.172 is kind of the bogey that we have been working to solve for. And so what we've done is to basically say, let's squeeze as much cost as we can out of the project without doing injustice to the main concept and design. And then let's also take responsibility for raising as much money as we can on our own from the History Center. So that's why we've committed to $200,000 in funding. As I said, we've already raised 50. It's not going to be easy in the 100-year history. They've never raised anywhere near that. But again, we think the design sells, people are engaged by it. And if the town supports it and we show our commitment, we're confident we can raise that. And then we asked Yugon over the last few weeks to value engineer as much as he could. And that's exactly what he's about to tell you. He's come up with a range that we just wanted to go through with you of things we would change to get this cost down. And you'll see that range is between about $140,000 and $200,000. And so it may even be a little over 200,000, but our recommendation is that that's the max we could go to kind of preserve the integrity of this. And so, Yugon, why don't you take us through those now?
Sure. So as Doug said, the committee asked me to kind of sharpen my pencil, take a closer look. And so that's what we did over the last month. So this is a kind of axiometric drawing that talks about the different ways and strategies that we will employ to reduce the overall costs. And as you saw in that initial floor plan, it's a quite small square footage. It's a small project. So it's difficult to take one item and reduce the budget significantly. So what we've basically done is try to take little bits from here and there, some areas a little bit more, some less, and then we've worked closely with our engineers to find other strategies, some of which are to further this initial strategy to leave as much of the existing systems and kind of building footprint untouched. And so we'll walk through some of these things. Some of these items, you know, as you saw in the renderings, we had ceilings painted. We think that in some areas, say in the vault, perhaps in the staff room, we can remove that painting scope and really become even more targeted about how we employ that color throughout the space. This next item here, which represents about $30,000 to $40,000, as you saw in some of the renderings, we had a wood ceiling. What we have worked with our fire protection engineer is that if we change the opacity or the free area of that slat ceiling, we will not be required to relocate all the sprinkler heads that were part of that initial estimate. And so this was one large cost savings that we were able to do, is that we created a 70% open wood slat ceiling. We are putting acoustic insulation at the deck because maintaining acoustic properties within the space is quite important, but that still results into somewhere between a $30,000 to $40,000 saving because we're leaving the sprinklers untouched. There is this additional savings of $20,000 in this area. You can see here in green, this is the vault where a lot of the collection will be housed, and some of the most priceless items will be housed. And there are certain established standards from a kind of archival preservation standpoint that we are following. But our engineers, what they had done at that original 100% estimate is that they put in additional redundancies within the system design. And so what we're suggesting is that we would propose removing that initial redundancy but allow for perhaps a future phased way of adding that secondary system to provide that added layer of protection. But removing that redundancy results in a $20,000 savings.
I'm sorry, you got to interrupt, but just to make sure you don't miss the point. The standards say, if you only have one system and you have archival old documents and you lose your AC in the summer or whatever, it's really bad. And so that's why these redundancies are built in. But, as Yugon said, maybe that comes later and we eliminate that. It's not irresponsible to do. It's probably not what a museum would do, but in this case, we think it's an appropriate way to save costs.
The other kind of cost savings is a reduction of the amount of glazing. So some of those views that you saw with views into the vault or other areas, or even kind of glazing that was throughout the entire curator's office, we would try to reduce that. There is an option, and you can see there's a wide range here of 25 to 50, is to either reduce or phase the furniture, millwork that you saw in the renderings. Some we could eliminate fully. Others you could think about a phased approach so that you could build really the bones of the space, and then as time progressed, add in that furniture at a later time. There is the possibility to kind of reduce some of the soft costs, which includes FF&E, and be a little bit more selective about the furniture, other freestanding furniture that is selected. We had originally selected resilient floor throughout the entire space, but another option is to go to simply painting the existing concrete floor, which is a significant savings, as you can see. There is another large savings that we identified. And so you can see right here, where you see in yellow, there we are proposing reducing the overall square footage of the gallery. And while 73 square feet do not seem like a lot, what we realize is that within that 73 square feet, there is kind of building systems that were very low and not appropriate for a gallery. But by shifting that wall over just a few feet, we can leave those systems and water pipes intact, which then results in this kind of larger cost savings. So then you can see, as Doug said, we kind of estimate a range of kind of savings between $138,000 to $200,000, resulting in this kind of revised budget range. And so you can really see here, this is that original SD floor plan. This could be that possible reduced floor plan that's more aware of where we have high cost changes within the space, so resulting in perhaps the shift of this wall, as you can see. This is that original view. This could possibly be the other view with that kind of reduction and reduced glazing. This is the view originally at 100% SD. And this could be the view at a phased installation, painted concrete floor, retaining this very warm, now more open wood ceiling, but still maintaining, I think, the conceptual approach, and I think the kind of whimsy of this space. And so that concludes my portion of what we've been doing in terms of developing a VE strategy at this time.
So where that leaves us is the request for the town would be $800,000 remaining to fund it, and that's what we are asking would go to town committee with hopefully your approval, and then but the project wouldn't start until a city official confirmed that the History Center, the Historical Society has raised the other 200, so that no one would be at risk. We'd aggressively continue the fundraising. Once we certified that we raised the 200, the town would give it a go, and the project would start, and we'd hopefully do that as soon as possible. We think that if you approve it, the town approves it, it will help greatly in our fundraising efforts, because it's almost like a challenge grant now that there's an opportunity to really make this thing happen. The last thing I just wanted to say before we get to all your questions is that we've been very thoughtful about contingencies, right? Because we know what's happened with the library. We don't think this is anything like that, but it's clearly was a traumatic event for town, and it's still on people's minds. And so I just wanted to say a few things about how we've done that. The contingency that we built in is substantial for a project like that. It's very appropriate. As you saw, it's almost $200,000. That's one. There was a lot of care and attention that went into hiring this architect. I will tell you that that we all reviewed very carefully how Yugon and his team has done in other projects, what has been their track record in terms of coming in under budget. And we're happy to send this to you, but I have a list of about probably 12 or 15 projects, schools, libraries, all public events ranging in size from $260,000 projects to 10 million projects. And in every single one, they came within less than 1% variation of what they estimated. Most are 1/10 of 1%, 6/10 of 1%, 2/100 of 1%. So they have an incredibly good track record of careful details, making sure that they're on target. And the last thing I'd say is, just because the project is smaller, much smaller than the library, reduces greatly the risk that there will be big overages. And I'd like to say that the town, everyone is smarter now because of what they went through. So we can never prevent against all risks, of course, but I think we've done a lot, and the town has, to really mitigate and get that likelihood very low. With that,
All right.
love to
Thanks,
hear your
Doug.
questions.
So before we jump in with questions, comments, let me just say a little bit about process. Advisory, of course, won't make any decisions tonight. At our public hearing, advisory will take a vote on the recommendation that goes to town meeting. So really, this is meant to be a conversation, a chance for all of us to come at you with questions and, get any additional information. And, you'll, I'm sure, hear some reactions as kind of feedback, with how people are reacting. But, no decisions have been made. Advisory has not taken a position. I think a number of people have talked to you or others on the Historical Society and have expressed kind of personal views of where they are, but the committee has absolutely not, not yet taken a position. So thank you, Doug, for a very careful, thorough presentation. Thank you, Yugon, for the same. And let's open it up and let's talk about this.
As Doug has his hand.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
sorry.
was just going to start in the room if anybody
Would you
here.
want to stop the screen share?
Oh, yeah, Yugon, could you stop the
Stop it
screen
right
share?
now, of course.
Yeah, that'll make it easier. Thanks for everybody to see. We'll get to Doug in a second. Anybody in the room who wanted to start, or else we'll go. All right, Doug, we'll start with you.
Great, thanks for the presentation. Doug, at the end, you said the ask is 800,000. Is that right?
Correct.
So the low end was a 1,072,000. The high end is 1,140 on the cost adjustments. So shouldn't the ask be somewhere between 872 and 940?
No, because Doug, I'm including the 200,000 that the Sherborn Historical Society has committed to raising toward the number. So
I
if
got
you
it.
take,
I'm just subtracting 200,000 from your range.
all right, so if you take the ending number of Yugon, let me just walk through it because the numbers have moved a bit. I'll tell you where we get there. So it's let's
I'm
go
just reading the
to,
last bullet on the last slide he had up.
yeah.
We're also counting the already paid money to Yukon was in there.
Yeah, so if you go to his kind of the numbers sheet, which I think is Sherborn Center renovation, the bottom line number on there is $1,272,000. Do you see that one, Doug?
Let's see if we can get this.
I don't have it in front of me, no. I'm
Okay,
just
well,
going off the
I'll put it in.
presentation you just went through.
Yugon, if you want to share that, that'd be great.
Yeah, there it is. Great. Thank you, Yugon. So you see that second to last number, 1,272 is the total project. The contingency of 187 is included within that number. We're told by the town that they can apply 100,000 of ARPA money that they have. So that 1,272 comes down to 1,172. Okay, and then, so we take that 1,172, take 200 off it in fundraising, that is 972. And then if you take, 200 off that, you get to 772.
Why are you
And
taking 200 up again? You're counting 200 twice. What did I miss?
yeah, the 200 is for the fundraising and the other 200 is for the value engineering. So we're assuming if we go to the maximum of taking what UGON has suggested could come out, if we take all of those, it gets you down to
Okay, I
772.
must have misunderstood his last slide that said at the bottom after the value engineering that the range was 1,072,000 to 1,140,000. Did I not read that right?
Yeah, so if you go to that one, so the 1,072,000 is going to the full 200, right? And so if you take 200 off of the 1,072,000, you get to the 772.
No, you get to 872.
872.
So this is my point.
Oh,
You're asking for a
you mean-
number that doesn't add up on your.
No, hold on. I'm sorry. The difference is that 100 that I mentioned about ARPA is not in his numbers, right? So that's why it gets to 772.
All right, let's move on.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
read the material that we were sent about with the 20 questions, which is very helpful. I'd like to follow up on some of them. What is the fiduciary responsibility that mandates you can't sell something to raise money for this? I don't understand that. I mean, I know what the phrase means, but like, why can't we?
Yeah, so the Attorney General has weighed in when museums have decided to sell their kind of masterpieces to raise money. So it's a little bit of a controversial policy in the art world. And so it doesn't mean you're prevented from selling things, but the fiduciary responsibility is to protect and preserve the artifacts, according to our mission for the benefit of the town. So if we were to take, for example, the cup that George Washington drank out of and tried to sell it on eBay, we likely would experience some concerns from the Attorney General as not properly stewarding the resources. Unless we had a good, statement that we were going to, put that money perhaps into some other way, or that item is no longer of value to the town or something like that. So
isn't the argument that this entire project is safeguarding and stewarding all these artifacts, and that if you sold George Washington's cup to pay for the thing, that would be saving all this stuff that's sitting across the street in someone's office? I don't.
Part of the issue ethically is that the standard response is that items sold from the collection, money realized from items sold from the collection should only be used for further developing the collection, not for capital projects.
Okay, all right.
Well,
That answers my question. Let's move on. So your 20 questions said you spent 85,000 on storage. That was over how many years?
3, no, 5.
5 years, yeah.
Okay, so order of magnitude, we're spending less than 20,000 a year storing this stuff. And it's not currently, from my casual observation, in climate controlled, I mean, other than just the heated and air conditioned building.
Let me answer.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, this is Martha Mahar, curator, responding. You're right, but what we have in the space at 20 North Main Street is paper materials, primarily newspapers, correspondence, and photographs. And these are the least requirements, that they have the least requirements for climate control. It's the other objects, the textiles, the various furnishings, the other materials that are museum objects that are still in storage that require the climate control.
So this is what I'm getting at. There's things we own that are in climate. Are they in climate control storage now, or are they?
Yes, they are. That's why it's costing so much.
Okay, got it. I asked a number of these questions last year at the town meeting. I didn't really get satisfactory answers, so I'm going to try again. How many items are there? It says thousands, but I mean, was anyone inventoried them? Like, do we have any idea?
We don't have a count, no.
Okay, so like every museum on the planet, 95% of the stuff sits in the basement and 5% of it gets displayed. I'm looking at this beautiful design of this basement room. I mean, there's zero chance you're going to be displaying all the items, right? You're going to be rotating stuff through. Is that correct?
That's correct, and that's partly, it's also a preservation issue to not keep things on permanent display is preferable these days.
So back to my question at town meeting last year, how many items have we got on display, for example, in the town hall? And why can't we simply rotate these items through other public spaces? The finished space upstairs in the library, I'm sure we could find a wall somewhere. You've got all that space in the town hall. Why can't we do that? Why do we need to do this at all?
I think we could do that, Doug. We certainly could do that. There's a lot of things we could do. We don't think we should, because again, this is so much more than displaying a few objects, right? The concept we are trying to lift up and propose is a community history resource that engages children and adults and seniors and makes our history live and makes it accessible to people. So that's really the whole concept. We're not, we absolutely could just display a few things in the townhouse like has been the case. We just don't think that's advisable. I just visited last week the Wellesley Historical Society. They're spending probably over $3 million on a building, an entirely separate building that's probably 5,000 square feet, and they have 200 fewer years of history than we do. People don't realize Sherborn has some of the richest history in the entire country, right? And it's a special privilege to have it, and it's all sitting in storage now. So we can certainly do those things. We just don't think it's wise and the right thing for this moment in the town. That's all. We think it's a transformative opportunity that over 30 years is a really good investment. That's kind of our view.
So
I also add that
I had one more question, but go ahead.
Materials are used for research as well as for display. This is not simply a museum collection, it is an archival collection as well. So yes, we display a small percentage, but there are other uses for the materials.
Doug, I was going to say, if you have one more question, that's great.
Can I answer Doug's question about the storage, what's in storage? Because I have this from capital budget. I have the exact.
Yeah, go ahead, Nora, go ahead.
2 sentences.
Great, thank you.
Follow up from January 29th. Thank you, Jeremy, for following up with me on that. Interim offsite storage with Gentle Giant and Randolph. Items are kept in a vaulted storage room in crates. We have 13 crates which measure 7 by 5 by 7 feet, which are 245 cubic feet each. And then finally, other items are stored in a climate controlled room, and those items include a piano, display cabinet, and a safe. And the piano, I believe, is not going to be.
To be determined.
Yeah, okay. So the cost of the storage is $1,098 per month. That answers the question.
Thank you. Yeah, and the other issue, of course, is that the other parts of the storage in the donated space were donated because it was temporary, right? So presumably there would be a cost to that going forward if we didn't have a place to put it.
Right.
So my last question, Dan, if I can.
Yeah.
Well, just.
And then we'll bring it into the room.
Who would bear the cost overrun? Because the cynic in me says we're all smart, but stuff happens and this will overrun by 10 or 20%. So does the town bear that? Who bears that? And by the way, the Wellesley town budget is 221 million. So I appreciate your analogy, but it's a different town.
Yeah, no, it is. There's a lot of different towns. I'm just saying that we have an incredible history, much better than they do. There you go. Sorry, from Wellesley.
No. Doug grew up in.
Yes. Oh, I love Wellesley. What we're proposing is that, the 800 be the limit of the town, because again, we are hearing feedback that there are a lot of concerns. So the Historical Society would have to take responsibility for raising additional money, or it would be delayed, but, we're gonna work hard to try to prevent that.
And you did mention that, and this is something that would have to be built into the motion that would be made at town meeting, that before any funds would come from the town, there would have to be certification by town administrator or finance director or somebody that sufficient funds have been raised to complete the project.
Exactly.
And that language would be built into whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
With
All right, let's
respect,
bring-
that doesn't answer my question, but go ahead.
So let's bring it into the room. Stephen, let's start with you.
Thank you for that presentation, very informative. I just want to circle back to the cost being borne by the town.
Yes.
And I hate to be throwing numbers out like this, but I'm going to anyway.
That's okay.
All right. So the budget is 1366.
Right.
That's what it costs to build it out. Then let's say 200,000 for value engineering. So it comes down to 1166. That is the project cost. Then we have to think about, well, what are the sources of funding for it? Right. We've already put in 100.
Right.
So the town's up into it for 100. You're contributing 200. So let's say 1167 less the 200 is 967. That's really what the town is contributing. It's really $1 million. We've already paid the 100.
Counting the architect, counting the ARPA funding.
Right, because the ARPA funding
absolutely.
is
You're correct.
still, we could spend it on something else.
Right.
So it's still, we're still contributing $1 million to build it. So I
Yeah,
just want to clarify.
Absolutely, that's fair.
That's
That's fair. I mean, what we've done is we've said, what is the remaining nut to solve?
I agree.
And what I'm trying to propose is, we're taking 400 out of what we started with a month ago by squeezing the cost and raising money. But you're right, if you back up and say, what's the total contribution of the town? I mean, I should say, by the way, it's not up to us, but we strongly recommend that the town finance this over 30 years. And the reason, there's a whole bunch of reasons to do that, but our reason is that we think future residents should share in the cost of the project, right? If they do that, the 800,000 that we're proposing, split among 4,300 town residents amounts to $14.31 per resident per year, or $1.19 a month. But if you actually deduct or offset the costs you're already paying, right? It works out to about $8.49 per person a year, or 70 cents per person a month. I don't say that to say these costs are not significant. I just say to put into perspective the value of what, if you buy my hypothesis of what this is gonna mean for the town, for its culture, for its engagement, for its people, I would just say that helps put into context the cost over time, and I don't think it's significant in light of the value. That's my view.
So I just want to make, I have two questions I want to make a point.
Please.
Okay. So when and if the project is completed in the basement, there are ongoing costs. So from what I've read, it's anticipated that the society is expecting that the town will continue to pay for maintenance, utilities, cleaning, HVAC, all those operating costs of the facility itself. Is that true?
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on what that annual cost is?
Sean, do you have a sense of that at all? The operating costs? I mean, we know that you said there are some energy efficient items so it was always paying those costs when it was in all of its previous locations.
I understand. I'm trying to think prospectively.
Right, absolutely.
Okay.
How much additional costs from what the library is incurring now? That's your question, right? Yep.
Well, you're lighting an already lighted basement. So the incremental increase of running those lights can't be more than a couple $100 a year, to be perfectly honest with you.
I have no, so I got to assume it's going to cost 25 $25,000 just to cleaning it, cooling it.
No.
Well,
No, it's not even close. It's,
So-
it's already air conditioned. I mean, it's already heated and air conditioned space, so the incremental cost of running that small unit is nowhere close to that.
I'm gonna put in my mind for the moment, 25,000. Now you need to support the museum with payroll, I assume.
No, we don't have
The
any.
curator is
We don't
volunteer,
have, they're all volunteers.
Thank you.
so there'll be no increment, there'll be no payroll, no cost borne by the society to operate the.
No, the only way there would be is if there was an overwhelming demand of town residents banging down our doors to get in and visit it and come to our exhibits, and we'd have to make a decision about, do we want to hire someone, which is what Wellesley did, but that, we would assume that responsibility, and that would be a good problem to have, I suppose. But there's never been and there's no plans. It's all on the good graces of volunteers like all of you.
So my final point is going to be this, and I've not made any judgment on whether we should do this or not. I'm totally
I appreciate
open-minded. But as managers, not as leaders of the town, but as a manager of the town, I put the advisory board in that category. I view our role as the allocation of resources, both human and financial, which are limited. So that's our responsibility, is to take those limited resources and allocate them appropriately. So for example, the space in the basement is an asset of the town. We have to decide if this is the best project and best use for that particular space. We have bonding. It's not an unlimited bonding potential that the town has. So if you float $1 million, it's a million that you can't do for something else.
Right.
All right. So by kind of saying, it costs, a person, $25 a month, I'm not sure that's or a year. I'm not sure that's an approach that I particularly appreciate, because it's really more global that we have to look at. And we're going to be doing a capital assessment of what the town needs over the next 10, 20, 30 years. And I think we're all going to be very surprised at the scope and scale of what that number is going to be. So I think that we also need to put this project in the context of what else is coming down the road that we're going to need to address. So that's my perspective at the moment.
And I respect and appreciate that, I really do. I mean, my only point is, I think this project is more than worthy of getting a priority in that analysis. But I completely respect your point. I just, you may not buy into my vision of what this is going to do for the town, what it's going to mean for the town, the future of how we can bring people together. Libraries are in a tipping point right now, right? They're going through an existential crisis. And towns that have the foresight to really think about how to use a library in a new way to get people in, I think, is a really wise thing to do. But I completely agree with the way you're thinking about it. You're right. I mean, you have that tough job, so I respect that.
Right. Okay, thank you for the time.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I've got a few things, sort of some responses and some of the foundations. So just for clarification, you're the president of the Sherborn Historical Society.
Correct.
And Sherborn Historical Society is a 501(c)(3) charity and independent organization.
Right.
So I think a reasonable way to look at this is a private organization is asking the town to spend $1 million on a project for that organization. I mean, I know you would argue that it would benefit the town, but I think that's not an unreasonable characterization.
Are you asking or telling me?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that's my opinion.
I have a different view, right? Because there is a very unique situation here in that an incredibly generous donor gave the town this unbelievable asset and essentially put a restriction on it and said, what I'd like is for you, town, to solve this problem. And that's been the case for 100 years. So I think of this as, you know, a responsibility the town has always shown. And the History Center is the steward to help protect and almost as an agent of the town to protect this for the benefit of the people in town, if that makes sense.
It makes sense, in some senses. I'm not extremely comfortable with mind reading somebody who's been gone for a while and saying, well, this is not, so he did these things in the past, so this is what he would want now.
I know, Ken, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but you don't have to mind read because the our predecessors in town on several occasions acknowledged his incredible gift, acknowledged the town's responsibility, and the town has acted that way for 100 years. So that's all I'm saying. It's not only, we have his statement from 1914, we have town minutes from 1938, we have 1983 minutes, and in all cases, the town has acted consistently. That's all I'm saying. You may not agree with it.
I'm not even arguing with that. What I will say is, from what I've seen, the only concrete obligation the town has is the town in 1983 voted to provide a room of a minimum of 600 square feet in a town building for the use of the Historical Society. And I don't have a problem, you know, if the town voted on that in 83, I don't have a problem with meeting that obligation. I don't even have a problem with exceeding meeting it. I think it's just a stretch and in fact, not quite fair to say this project is how we need to meet that.
I'm not saying that. Let's be clear. I'm not saying that because of something a guy gave in 1914, you have to do this project. Let me be very clear about that, right? Obviously, that's not the case. What I'm just trying to say, at least what I feel, is that I have a moral responsibility to do everything I can to honor the request that this donor made and consistent with the way the town is practiced. It wasn't only 1983, there was a vote in 1938. And there was a reference to a vote in 1971. There was a reference to a probate court, you know. So I'm not, but you're absolutely right. There's no legal document that says you have to do this project. I give you that.
Sean, you wanted to jump in with a quick thing.
Yeah, there's a flip side of this that predates Doug as well, not just the 1983 argument, but the reason the Council on Aging has a home in this town hall that suffices their needs is because we moved the History Center out of, they had space.
Right, I'm not.
The need was created by the town administration needing to move people around in this building and not find another facility for Council on Aging.
Right, I understand that. What I'm getting
So
at
it's
is.
much more than what Homer Dowse wanted to give or anything else.
But that is all just very subjective. And I remember last year, this all started with the town has a legal and moral obligation to do this. And I'm saying, all right, and I asked, because if you have a legal obligation, you cannot know you've met it until it's been specified. And the only one that I've seen that has been specified is in the 83 Warren article. Now, I'm not saying that's all we have to do, but I'm saying foundationally, we should start with what is the actual legal picture, and then we can pick and choose if we want to do more than that. So that's where I am. I will say, in terms of feedback, I remember when this came up last year, and when I told people, talked to people, I said, you know, they're asking the thing about asking the town to borrow $1 million to build a museum, a Sherborn Museum in the basement. And uniformly, the feedback I got was not positive. You know, it was like, it was not, I'll leave it at that. It was negative. I think, and I'm sort of going to say second what Stephen said, I think that if you break down over 30 years, boom, 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 it only becomes X, you can justify anything that way. If I gave you $1 a day, in 2,700 years, you'd be a millionaire. You know? So that, I don't find that persuasive. I also I don't like I think, as you know, if we're looking at managers, if we're looking at our own responsibility, I think if you build it, they will come idea is I would find it personally, I'll speak for myself, an irresponsible way to spend a lot of money. because that's the ask is for a lot of money.
Can I just make a point on that? The library, I'm told, I haven't verified this, that their numbers are way up.
Well, that's true, but I'll grant that, I assume that's true, because I've seen those numbers. The library isn't this. I mean, the people from the Historical Society may be exceptions, but I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but when was the last time any of us here visited a municipal museum? I mean.
I did, but it's probably not a good
Yeah.
test case.
Yeah.
But you don't think the Council of Aging, we just heard you don't think they would love it? You don't think school projects going there, you really don't think that it will inspire like?
Actually,
I mean, I'm curious because I'm totally bought into the idea that this is gonna.
Well, actually, if you put me on the spot, if I were gonna bet, I'd say no, I don't think so. I think it might get some use. But more the point is to ask the town to spend a lot of money on that kind of, if you build it, they will come theory. I don't care for that. That would bother me as.
And I haven't said if they build it, they'll come. I'm just saying my belief is it will have a big impact, and that's what we're hoping, and that's what we're excited about. That's what other people I've talked to are excited about, and that's what, that's what we're planning for, because
But
it may not happen. I mean,
that seems, I'm not trying to bandy words with you, but that's saying, I'm not saying if we build it, they will come, but it's my belief that if we build it, they will come.
No, but Penn, the whole point of this proposal is not based on a certain volume of people coming. It's based on a solution for the town of a history center, right? And
What
so
problem if you're offering this as a solution, what problem are you trying to solve?
the problem we're trying to solve is that we've been in storage for 5 years, and there's no place to engage the community around the rich history that some of the richest history in America is sitting in storage, is not accessible to the town, is not connected to children, is not connected to seniors, to adults in this town, that people don't have a fuller appreciation of what this town has to offer. And, I'll use myself as a model because it's, I think, a good one. The more I've learned about local history of this town, I've written about it, the more I've wanted to participate in this town because it's brought me closer to connect to the town. It's wanted me to contribute. It's given me a sense of stewardship to help the town for my children and the next generation. And I think that's going to happen to a lot of people. I think it has. We certainly know the legacy of people who have, I don't think you will find a town in probably America that has had such consistent pattern of generosity of a family to a town, many families, right? And that wasn't a coincidence, I would say, right? And so that's what we're building on. And I think it's a safe assumption that given what we saw last year at the anniversary, that people are gonna be engaged and want to participate in this. I think it's one of the best investments the town could make. I really absolutely believe that. You may not, and we can respectfully disagree, but I'm just giving you my opinion, and I think my opinion is based on some.
Why don't you do one more thing and then let's bring it around to others.
Well, I'll just finish with this. So last year, I was neutral on the idea of doing something for the Historical Society. And I was adamantly opposed to a luxury project like that this museum is. This year, having met with Margot, I am positive on us doing something for the Historical Society for preservation and display. But I remain unsold by a very big margin that this museum is the right answer for solving that problem. And the more subjective arguments that you present very passionately, and they may very well be right, but they're also subjective. and for me to suggest to the town, spend a lot of money that oversolves for the problem you need to solve based on nice things possibly happening that, I'm not there yet.
I respect your opinion.
Margot, quick comment, and then let's get to other
I
questions.
have
Go ahead.
Marco that you have referred to. Thank you for your kind words. I just would like to say, we were never relegated to 700 square feet. It might have been determined in that room across the hall. We had our museum. That was in 1983. However, our furnishings were throughout this entire building. When we were moved to the lower level, our furnishings for the most part were localized in a space that far exceeded 700 square feet. And we were given virtually the entire lower area to hang our paintings and World War II, World War I posters. They're still there today because it's cheaper to keep them there than put them in storage. We've had 3 meetings earlier this year or last year where we had over 500 people attend those meetings. We have people contacting us daily for information. And, I think that something really needs to be done. We can't stay in storage forever. We can't stay where we are forever. That's very temporary. It could change in a heartbeat. So a decision has to be made.
May I respond to that? I wasn't trying to relegate you to 700. I was never trying to relegate you to 700. I'm just saying that's the number that's on the warrant article. I think it should be exceeded. So, I'm sorry, lost track there. So first of all, that's the one thing. And then the other thing is, I think this needs to be addressed. I just think 2 things. One, I think this is not the right answer. And I think, well, I'll just say that. I think it's a lot of money that, for lack of a better term, over addresses the need that I see that the town needs, in my opinion, or what I see to need.
So, Nora, let's.
Okay. The $100,000, where else would that be allocated? Where is that coming from? Like, and I guess I'm looking at Jeremy, yeah.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, where is that taken from? Where, that could be, if it weren't here.
The town appropriated $100,000 toward the design funding.
Right.
The town needed to make a decision by the end of last calendar year, by the end of last December, on how to allocate the ARPA funds that the town had. The select board made a decision to use $100,000 of the ARPA funding and use that in lieu of the $100,000 that was appropriated at town meeting to fund the design.
Okay, so that's
It's obligated. ARPA funds have been $100,000 in ARPA funds have been obligated to the design of
Okay.
this.
I just want to make sure that was,
Change. It
okay.
had to be formalized by December 31st,
Mhm.
which it was.
Okay, so then,
There's no unwinding the ARPA funding.
okay. My next question is, we'll use Needham as an example, or Wellesley. But I'm on ProPublica here, and I'm curious why Sherborn Historical Society isn't, but it's like a 501c3 kind of nonprofit thing. Now, they have a revenue, they have assets, but I'm sure that's determined on, the historical significance and whatnot. But I believe that Needham Historical Society, when they've had to go to places, that's all been privately raised. I don't believe that the town has given them any money. I'm curious about Wellesley too.
I know that the town's giving them significant money.
Wellesley.
Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
about Needham, but I just met with Wellesley. Wellesley, I think it might be through the Community Preservation Act money.
CPA,
Yeah.
chunk of CPA.
Another reason why we should have voted for the CPA, but that's beside the point.
But, But I also think that it is pretty unique here because of this donation, right? That isn't the case in Wellesley. I don't think they feel any particular obligation, whereas in this case, it's different, right? Because it dates back to a donor who said, I want the town to take care of the historical society, and that's what makes it.
All right. We've talked about this also in capital budget. It just looks like there's more revenue coming in. I mean, granted, like, so for example, Holliston, this shows 2023 revenue of 125 and expenses, because they lease out that building. I'm taking it is why they get the revenue, and also members, whatnot, donors, and expenses 106. But what is?
125,000 in revenue for Holliston?
Mhm.
That's because they rent that.
They rent the building out, I'm sure.
I see. Do they own that barn?
Yeah, and then I believe Needham Historical Society owns their property too, if I'm correct. And they're also the museum center, history museum, anyway, they renamed it
Are you
also.
proposing to donate a piece of property to the historical society?
Listen,
There's one local near here.
Sean, my capital budget meeting, I became a member of $500, full disclosure, right? So that cost me 500. You want me to? I've already committed a significant amount if this goes through, but okay. So, the point being is, what is revenue do you have coming in? And what's to say if you don't get the 200, then, every year, things have gone up and up and up and up. So, do you have a timeline for that? Do you already have it set? I mean, could you ask for more, maybe, say, instead of 200?
If more came in, we'd be very happy.
I understand, but then would that be taken off? No, but I'm just saying, if more came in, then would it be less that you're asking for I'm just, or can you ask for try and get 500,000, which I think is pretty reasonable?
Go for it.
Ask,
Yeah.
and then the town commit to a lower
From your
amount.
lips to someone's ears, yeah. Look, I mean, we'll ask for as much as we can get, right? We're in the, as I said, we've already raised 50,000, a quarter of the way there without, a really, a lot of opportunities left. That doesn't include any grants, that doesn't include any earmarks, that doesn't include any, large donors. And so, but based on people we've talked to, a donor is not going to want to give unless they know the town is committed, likely. And so we think that if we get the vote, it will give us a huge push to kind of continue with the project, and it'll allow us to more credibly apply for grants. And
But could the vote be for less money, is all I'm saying? Because it's like, it's not a yes or a no, it's just, you have this
Well,
huge amount of money.
what we could say
And it's
is,
not, was just not a blip, it was over, like, probably, correct me if I'm wrong, $6.5 million, that was, the town was asked, oh, it's only gonna be $1 million.
oh, for the library?
Yeah, and then it became 7 plus, am I
Right.
right, like, it's over 7? 6.5, 7,
Yeah.
6.5.
Yep.
I mean, it's really, it's not just like a little blip, it's a real pain
Oh, I
point.
understand, I
So
understand.
I just don't understand if you say even 200 or even, 500, if you ask for less for the town rather than, because last year we sent this back, capital budget and advisory was for the 960 request. And then we're kind of back at the same number, and we even sent it back the year before because of that high number. So I feel like no matter where we are, here we are, it's just, I really support this, and I think, I think it's phenomenal. I was so glad to get some members over there that one day, and how you're doing projects on most of the houses, and how, I mean, it's really fabulous what you're doing. It's just, it's such a painful number, and I know you have to have a place to get the grants. It's like you need somewhere that you're gonna be, so I appreciate that. I'd love to, in my opinion, it'd be great for the town to commit to that space, but you really have to commit to it for $1 million.
I mean, it's 2025, it's not 2016. The cost has changed. I mean, this is a different reality.
I'm not saying the cost has changed, I'm saying the town can commit to less money and you raise more money, because it looks like a lot of these historical societies have they raise a lot of money on their own.
They do, But as I think Doug mentioned, you know, in Wellesley's case, for example, they have a lot larger population, a bigger town. You know, we don't know. You know, I mean, there have been people who've been very generous here, but they've been tapped, I'm told, a number of times for a number of things. So, you know, I feel pretty confident about 200 based on what we've raised, but I don't know whether we can do more than that.
Do you have a timeline on the 200 or no? Because
As soon as possible, right? I mean, we're gonna just actively ramp up and do it as soon as we possibly can. You know, I can't tell you when that'll happen, but I can tell you that it will likely have much more oomph when we get the town vote, right? Because people are probably not gonna wanna give to a project that they don't know is gonna happen, or if the town isn't supporting it. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing, I think.
I just don't want to, it's not that the town's not supporting, well, in my opinion, it's not that I wouldn't be
No, I'm just
supporting
saying
it.
the
I just think,
perception. I'm just saying that I think the town vote will be really important to potential donors, right? Because then we go out and say, you have the opportunity to bring this to the, you know, cross the finish line, make this thing happen. We have the design that's been accepted and approved by the town. Everyone likes it, right? As opposed to, you know, raise money and maybe the town will contribute or not. You know, that's my sense, right?
Jane Branch had her hand
Please,
up.
Jane.
Do you want to
Sorry.
join us?
Hi, I'm Jane Branch. I'm the treasurer of the Historical Society. And I just wanted to ask a question to the board to think about the costs of not doing this, and at what point is the money that we're already investing, if this project does not happen, at what point will the advisory board or town decide how much is too much that we've spent not doing this? So I have a 4-year-old. When he's 15 years old, if this project doesn't go through, the town has paid nearly $250,000 in rented space and storage fees for this archive. And when he needs to go do his, you know, famous dead guy project, that is a project that Kevin Delaney has worked with Dover Sherborn to put in their curriculum. At what point will this discussion come up again? And is this money that the town is spending for the storage just being thrown away instead of being invested in a lasting space?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. I wanted to get to folks on the committee who haven't had a chance to speak yet. So Laura, do you want to?
Sure. I wondered if, trying to sort of work out, you had mentioned that the architect Yukon has an excellent track record of coming in on budget. Is that, when you talk about the budget, does that include the contingency, or would that be less the contingency?
Why don't we let Yukon answer that? Did you hear the question, Yukon?
I mean, do you mean delving into the contingency?
Right. In other words, based on your track record of coming in on budget, does that budget include the contingency, or does that, in other words, could we assume that the contingency might actually not be spent because it's a contingency?
I see what you mean. Yeah, I'm assuming. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the way that the contingency goes is that there'll be contingency held, right? And then there's contingency that is taken out. So like our design contingency, since we're only at like say 25% DD, you know, we held certain percentages, but as we go forward, we will release that percentage so that then as it gets re-estimated, we'll know more about the project. During construction, right, they hold a certain amount of the full contingency that we've held, so that as we move forward, if certain things occur, then there are no issues. But, you know, time and time again, we have left that construction contingency untapped.
Okay.
So when all those things you gave us, Yukon, when you come within 0.1% of the budget, does that include the budget with the contingency or not, or do you know? I think that's what you're getting
That
at,
is the
right?
question,
Because you're trying to
15%.
gauge whether there's a likelihood we may get this 180,000 back, right?
That's
I
right.
think
It's 15% of the project, so it's not
Right.
immaterial.
No, it's not immaterial. Is there any?
I have to go
understand?
back. I can't, I have to go back to look at those numbers. But,
Okay.
you know, when you are in bidding, that contingency is not going to be the full amount because we're only going to hold, say, 10% of construction contingency once you go to bid. All the other contingency is going to go to zero. So it's not like, you know, right now we're holding almost 200,000 for contingency.
Yeah.
There's design contingency and other contingencies, but those the way that the strategy is that we will know everything about design when we go to bid. So then there's no contingency. So then you're really at only a 10% contingency. So that the number will be shrunken significantly. That's only used in case there's some unforeseen condition during construction.
Right, no, I understand what the purpose is, I'm just trying to figure out kind of what the track
The
record is.
likelihood of.
Because I basically just started out with 1,272,234. I subtracted 187, the contingency, then I get to 1,084,476. Then I took out the value engineering, the low end of 138,000. I guess we did 946,476. Then I took out the $100,000 of ARPA. I'm at 846,476. Then I took out the $200,000 of fundraising, and I'm at 646,476, which sounds better than 800. So
I gotta correct you on the ARPA money. Was spent on the architectural drawing.
So has
The
that
ARP
been spent or has that not been
No,
spent?
that's been spent.
Okay,
So
so
you-
add back this 100.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Jeremy, do you want to?
It's in the process of being spent. I think maybe a 30% of that has been billed and expended.
But the point is, it's not
It's
available.
However, it's committed.
It's committed.
Yeah,
Okay.
And I think
Right.
we should,
Okay.
you should clear the spreadsheet with the costs. We should just be clear that there's a note on the bottom, down on the bottom in number 4, that notes 100,000 of that has already been funded. So it's really, you're looking right now, the additional project costs are 1.172 million. That's the number you should be netting out the 200 and the 200 from.
What 200?
That's
Forget
what
about the 100.
That's what I've been
I'm so
basing it on.
And
Right, yeah.
Jeremy,
After that.
just to clarify, that's allocating the ARPA funds of 100,000 and allocating last year's appropriation from town meeting of 100,000. So
Correct.
there's $200,000 of ARPA, another 100,000 of town funds allocated last year. And then the roughly 200,000 of value engineering, and then
Roughly
roughly 200,000 of
Exactly.
fundraising.
Exactly, yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Which
Not
is,
entirely.
Okay, we should go through it.
Replace the 100
I
Make
think
sure
that's
everyone-
not actually,
What's that?
Ken's asking the question of if the ARPA funds were gonna replace the appropriation from last year or was in addition to, and my understanding is there was some conversation about that, but that it's ultimately in addition to.
So
Oh, then you would take it out.
Yeah. I've been told, but just exactly what Jeremy just said, that the remaining bogey is the 117,
Right.
right? And
And from which one then would.
just as you described it, is
the
exactly
subtractions
right,
that you
yeah.
said, right?
Can I ask another question? I'm sorry. Do you mind?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm looking here at the Wellesley Historical Society. I want to just get my head wrapped around this, all right?
Yeah, of
And
course.
apologize. It says the Wellesley Historical Society has raised 2.4 million for this project. We only need an additional 300,000 to open the
The
doors of Wellesley.
2.4 million includes the
CPA, I
town,
think it includes the CPA.
includes the 600 is
So that's-
650. I mean, I met with the president
Right.
last week. He told me 650 came from the town. And he told me he's going back to the town for some more. They bought the building for 1.2. They spent.
Wellesley Historical Society
Yes,
bought it
yes.
with their money.
Well, I don't know whether they used the town's money to help buy it, or they
Alright,
used the
alright.
town's money to help the renovations also cost 1.2. That's how you get to the 2.4.
Mhm.
And then they need another, 300 or whatever it is. And I think they're looking at the town as well. They also got a big grant from the Cultural Council.
So then this is my next thing is about the process. So if you are requesting 800, and now every year, the cost is gonna go up, because that's what my perspective's been. So but what if you get grants? Do you take down the 800? I'm just saying, because if you now know you're gonna be at this place, so then you can apply for grants, right? Because I remember talking to you about that on a previous meeting. So,
We are very comfortable, if
So
you
can
want
you-
the warrant to say that if we raise more than we expect, or if we get grants, it will go to the town. It will go to reduce the town's
Okay,
liability. I'm totally comfortable with that. But I think to go into the town meeting and say 400 is not gonna work, because that's assuming we're gonna be able to raise this all, and we don't know. So what I'm suggesting is, what's the most reasonable amount we can squeeze out of the project? I think it's what we presented. And what's the most reasonable amount we can raise in a relatively short period of time? And we've given you our best judgment. But if,
And what's a relatively short period of time? 6 months?
I would say 6 months, I mean, right? I mean, we're gonna start immediately. I mean, we're already talking to people, but I think in earnest, I think 6 months is reasonable. I would hope that we would be able to do it before that. And I guess what I'm saying is, if it were important to you, to the extent that like in 6 months, we got a earmark absolutely go, if we've otherwise met the project cost, it should go to the town to reduce its liability. It's not like the Historical Society would want to get any excess in this deal, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
That does, actually, so thank you. To me, that's important, because I want you still, not you, but I would expect like aggressive fundraising and also grant applications and everything else. I mean, seems to me there's, well, maybe there is, maybe there
That's probably the bigger
isn't.
point, not that like Historical Society will
That's what they're.
get a bunch of money and keep it. It's more, are you aggressively going to look for it?
And we will
Now
be.
that you have a
And then it
promise from
would
the town, we'll
offset.
pay you $800,000.
Then it can go down, like the town doesn't have to
Yeah, well, I mean.
pay back the town. I mean, would that be a,
Jeff Waldron has talked about meeting with our congressman. There's other towns that have gotten earmarks. I don't know if earmarks are gonna be even in the picture, but I think we're gonna proceed on all fronts, basically. And, we're happy to seek your opinions and advice on that.
I think that would be a real, for me personally, like a good feeling that instead of even thinking like a going over, there's no such thing as over budget, because it's gonna be a certain amount,
Yeah.
whatever number that's gonna be. And by the way, it might even be lower if we end up raising more money.
How did you come up with, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
How did you come up with $200,000? And
I wish I could say it was a scientific study by, I mean.
but you came up with it somehow, so I'm just.
We did.
how you
We
did it.
came up with it based on, what we have in our budget, what we've been able to raise to date. Kevin Delaney made these benches that sold for $12,000. We had some anonymous donations of $5 and $5. We solicited the board, and so we got to 50 pretty quickly.
About how much time did that take?
That was probably, several months. I mean, the benches were in the works for a while. Some people have made donations within probably the last 6 months maybe, or?
Well,
Actually, 2 weeks, we got the
2 weeks.
25,000,
Yeah, for George, yeah.
$25,000.
I mean, things can be chunky, I get it, like the way
Right.
these kinds of donations happen. I mean, I think it would be good if you had a fundraising plan.
We
You
do,
know, like
we
a-
do have a fundraising
Okay.
plan.
Because that's what we haven't, so I think one of the things that I feel like people are reacting to is that there's a vision, but we don't like have this as sort of as concrete an idea of what the vision is. And so it's a lot of money and people are trying to sort of figure out where's the value of spending that much money? What are we getting for it? Can we spend, it's just really trying to get a better handle on that. And I think if there was a way to communicate the fundraising plan a
Yep.
little bit more concretely, your estimation of how long it would take, And, you know, who are you trying to tap? Internal, external, what kinds of grants, what the magnitude of those things, just a little bit more clarity around that. Because if it's gonna take 3 years to raise $200,000, then all the numbers are gonna look different again.
Right, and can you do something on the warrant
Right,
article,
although
Jeremy?
the town wouldn't pay anything in that case, right? I mean, no one would want that to happen, but you know what I mean? Because the whole thing is contingent on us raising the money,
Right.
Can
so.
you do up to, can you do, the town will agree to fund up to, what, 800? Can you do something like that?
That's almost definitely what it would be.
Yeah.
Okay,
It would be a not to exceed or.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, yeah. And that's, you know, look, this is all really valuable feedback. I think we can put together a much more detailed fundraising plan, so at least you can see how we plan to go about getting it.
can, Pam,
Yeah. I want to give others a chance to jump in. Pam, did you?
I do. Has anybody thought about asking the library to help out at all because of the big debacle that has occurred at the library?
I mean, I have sat in on every single trustees meeting since 2020. I might have missed one or two.
I mean, I'm happy to ask them. There is no
I would
money
be
that's
thrilled for
in
you
the
to ask
library.
them. They received the privilege of the proceeds of the sale of the Douse Memorial Library went to this library, and they established an endowment fund with that money. I'm not
So I
saying
think
that,
that would go a long way in healing some library pains with the town.
and we have been, and we were told, with all due respect, Sean, that we were going to move, in 2020, we were going to move into the library in 5 months. Well, obviously that didn't happen because of what took place with regards to library construction. And so.
And it is.
I was just the guy that trucked you out. I wasn't in charge of
Yeah,
trucking, but I did. Sorry about that.
Nice try, Sean. Nice
Somebody
try.
else wrote that check.
oh, really, a check was written, huh?
All right, so I want,
What was the last part of what you said? It's easier to.
It's easier to fundraise when you know what amount you have to fundraise, and if they have your support, and if they have the town support.
So let's go for 500,000.
Marion Neutra wanted.
Fundraising.
Yes, Marion,
Sure.
go ahead, please.
Marion.
All right, if you're taking comments from outsiders, I'd like to just ask Doug Brown, when you do come forth with detailed information about which grants you're going to go for, I think you should have information about how those grants, you should do some research on how those grants make their granting agencies make their decision. For example, in my experience, a grant is more likely to be funded if the applicant doesn't already have the money committed from another source. So if the town commits everything that you need with the donations and stuff that you have, a granting agency is going to look at that and say, well, you know, they have the money. Let's use it for somebody who doesn't have the money. So one strategy, and this is just something you might look into, is to apply for a grant, but have committed part of the money, but not all of it, so that the granting agency sees that there is a gap to be filled, and their money will have a big bang for the buck. It's just something I'd like to hear about when you come back.
I appreciate that. That's really helpful. I mean, that is what we had in mind with the 200. You know, if we could get it all from one donor, fabulous. But we were thinking that gap would also be how we would go to granting agencies as well. But I appreciate that.
Thanks, Marion. Mike, let's go to you.
Yeah, this might be helpful if Yugon could share the screen with the itemized costs again. Sorry to have to do that on the spot. Thank you. So the value engineering that we've been talking about, I think it would be helpful to build that into this document. And one of the big reasons why I want that, in addition to just having exact figures, that number is going to come out of the top. And then a lot of these lower numbers are based on percentages of the top number. So I think that if there's really a $200,000 that we're taking out of the project, that 200 is actually 300 or some number along those lines. So I just, I think an exercise like that would be helpful to come up with an actual number so that we know exactly what we're talking about.
These
ahead.
these numbers are weighted already. So these have taken consideration overhead and the markups.
Yeah, so it's not, I wish it would become 300 taken out, but I don't think it is, right? You gone?
Yeah, because our estimator, he provides the deduct alternatives. He builds in those additional kind of markups that you see at the bottom line.
And we can definitely build it in though. We wanted for you to just show you kind of where we were in the month ago and what we've done in the meantime. So if you want, you think it'd be more helpful when we formally, I know we only have a few minutes on the 22nd, but or for town meeting, we can build them in.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to have an actual, I mean, you could keep this as an option, but then have like an option B or, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of possible value engineering options there are, but maybe create the floor because maybe that's a number that's a little bit more palatable.
Okay. Thanks.
I just had a few questions. Thank you so much for being generous with your time.
Sure.
And I may have missed this when when the presentation was given, but the plan, the built-out plan, there's a component of that has controlled, like climate controlled for the archival materials. Okay. Has any thought been given to potentially taking this bigger project and phasing it in some way? I understand that there's additional costs when you phase it. There's it would be less expensive like immediately if you were just to do everything at once versus like phasing it. But my one thought is if there's a component that has the climate controlled aspect, could we start with that portion to get us out of paid climate control and have it where we know it's going to be housed? Then it's here. I mean, I'm trying to understand with the grants, I'm hearing that we need to know that the space has been allocated for this project. And is that the case? Like,
You mean to apply to grants?
yes, that we have a place for this to be. Is that,
Yes.
did I understand that correctly? And has that been codified somewhere?
No,
That this is the space, this space in the library is definitely for this project? Is that codified anywhere?
What you mean?
Well, it will be codified multiple places. One town meeting vote will do that.
Okay.
The trustees need to, they voted.
They've already
They
voted.
voted to
Okay.
allow it.
Okay,
There isn't a written and signed MOU between the groups as there can't be yet, but.
okay. Because once we have that codified, that will help with the grant application process. Am I understanding that correctly? Okay, so I guess I'm just wondering, like, big picture, is there a way to make this, like, phase this out a little bit so that the cost can not be this huge cost upfront, but like get you out of this paid storage, get you where you need to be? That's not building out a space that's not going to be for its future use. It's building out the space that is going to be used for storage in the plan that you've presented.
No, it's a very good question.
And get this thing codified so that
Right.
we can start applying for the grant.
Let's let you go on, because we've
Okay.
talked, we considered this a lot. And,
Okay,
and, we've had differing views on it. I mean, as Yugon described, one of the options is to phase a portion in just these, it's to do all the finishing. Do you want to just describe it, Yugon? A lot of the finishing and the trim, go ahead. You'll be more articulate than I will.
No, I would say that, but I mean, we have started to introduce phasing as a cost-cutting possibility. We started with furniture. That is often the easiest way to phase. We could look at more aggressive phasing But I think the challenge is a remobilization of another contractor, and it gets complicated, right? Because then you would have to bid out the project again, and then some materials may not match other materials. But that being said, we could look at other more aggressive strategies. It's just, the furniture, it was a kind of larger cost, and it was easy to go to kind of think about facing it that way. In terms of the conservation envelope, we did ask the estimator, what it would cost to just remove all conservation requirements and just use the library kind of climate system. And it represents around, 65,000. So it's not a huge number.
And that is not in your value engineering right now, right?
No, because because we are bound, as to follow certain archival standards, unless we are clearly directed not to kind of meet them. So in a prior presentation, this kind of conservation kind of reduction was a range. It was 20 to 65 to represent that high end. But until someone from the town or the building committee kind of directs us to kind of remove that requirement of an archival space, we really should not do that.
Ethically, yeah, I get it.
Can I just get a point of clarification on your topic? Yeah. What percentage of the items would be in the facility versus still needing to be stored? So my point in asking the question is all the storage costs are not going to disappear, correct?
Yes, we want to get everything out of
So everything that's in storage would be able to fit into this 1,000 square feet.
Yes.
1,800 square feet.
Everything that was in storage everything that's in storage now was here.
Okay.
And that was about 1,000 square feet downstairs.
You're talking about 1,800 square feet of climate control space?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
1,800 square feet of climate controlled space.
With the gallery, that's climate control is that part in the green there.
I'm sorry, I'm not, what would be the square footage?
Of the whole thing?
No.
Oh.
Well, actually, two questions. What would be the square footage of the whole thing? And what is the square footage of the climate controlled, the vaulted area, the high priority?
The archive area.
Archive, whatever, yeah.
Yep. Hugon, can you answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, the overall square footage before these value engineering things was around, 1,900 square feet. This is a little under 400 square feet, which is the climatized area.
Does that answer your question?
It does. Questions?
Shelley, did you have anything more?
No, I was just trying to get some clarification on the ordering of things, because I remember last year when we approved the 100,000 for getting a plan. I remember the reason I was in support of that, the rationale was that we can't actually bid and get a real number on that construction cost until we have a plan. So that definitely made sense to me as the next step. I feel like the amount is, even with the value engineering, will be hard, even at town meeting, to get approved, I think, at that number that it is currently. So I'm just trying to think outside the box of ways that we could, like, if we were to face it, like, to maybe, get us into the space, get us into a portion of the space, at least in terms of the storage. I don't know if there could be a phase that just allows for some display in addition to that. And then once you start getting people coming down to the space, then and this is the plan for this, and that could help with the fundraising, because you've actually got people in the space. And then the schematics could be there, and it's like you're actually getting people through the space to get excited about it. And this is what like phase 2 is gonna look like. I mean, I'm familiar with how the fundraising works, so they've got kids in private schools and they have to face these projects because they're so expensive.
Right.
So, I mean, I think, yeah, maybe you could ride that like 350th year excitement, do a portion of this, but make it feel more reasonable to the town. And then really, I think you maybe get more buy-in if you can just, it's just a thought. I don't know. I know economies of scale don't work that way.
Right.
So I understand that it would
Yeah,
be,
I mean, look, it's
just an
better than-
idea.
it's better than- No, I appreciate it.
It's just
very
another
much.
idea.
It's better than no project, you know? I
Mhm.
mean, there's downsides, as Yvonne said, but we'll certainly consider that.
Margot, and then we'll go to Doug backwards.
I was thinking that we really do have to consider the impact a phased-in process will be on the library.
Mhm.
And dragging it out for X amount of time, or years, could be a huge impact.
In the sense of disruption from the construction and so on, yeah.
Yeah. But,
Okay.
you know, look, we believe this is gonna be great for the town, but if you don't think this is a worthy project, we'll have to go back to the drawing board, right? Because my guess is if you're not supporting it or supporting the plan, the town isn't gonna, right? And so,
Well, we've been,
No, I'm
that's
not trying to
it's really up
disparage
to the
anything.
town, I mean, ultimately.
exactly.
And if the town's gone against us, with our recommendation,
No, I
not
understand
even
that.
with us, but
I'm just saying,
previous.
if, you know, if we
Advisories.
can't convince you, we're gonna have a real tough time convincing the town.
Let me go
so.
to Doug, and then I've got some comments, and we should probably wrap up this section of our meeting. Doug Kingsley, go
Yeah,
ahead.
thanks, Dan. I'll be brief. So in the interest of trying to summarize, I think we're looking at a project that will cost something between $1 million and $1.4 million. No one in this meeting can actually predict with certainty the cost given supply chains and inflation and delays and corrupt contractors. I mean, the library was exhibit A for this. And to be clear, these are the architect's estimates, which may be good, but they're not actual bids from builders. You're asking us to allocate some of the money, the required money, with a promise to raise 200,000, which may or may not cover the actual cost of completion. So, you know, there's a reasonable chance that this thing gets hung up and doesn't get completed, even if we start it. Also, the answer to the question of who bears the cost of the overrun is obviously the town. So this could be, you know, in smaller version of a library 2.0. I don't think there's been particularly detailed analysis of the operating cost. I know, you know, Sean has made some estimates or whatever, but I think we need more detail on that. So I go back to first principles, given all that, and say, building on a lot of the comments that were made, if the goal is to engage senior citizens and school children and people want to learn more about the town or do, you know, school projects, for let's just say $200,000 that you could privately raise, can't we spend that money inventorying everything we have, scanning things, cataloging artifacts, et cetera, and basically having it something that you could access on an as-needed basis out of storage, as opposed to having a display museum?
It's gonna cost you a lot of money to do that.
Well, you know, it's probably, if you build this thing, it's probably something you're gonna have to do anyway, and I don't see a budget for that. I mean, you're gonna build $1 million museum and then you're not gonna inventory everything? I don't.
Go ahead.
I spent the last 35 years inventorying things, and we're by no means finished.
And I spent 5 years inventorying the print department at the Boston Public Library, so I think we have a little experience on this.
Okay, Sean, go ahead.
I want to clarify one thing before this goes any further. That what's going to be in this motion is a project that cannot start. It will not start just on the money that the town has.
Right.
That contract will not, there's no risk that we're going to start it and not have the funding.
Right.
Obviously, there's no guarantee that there won't be overages. That's what contingencies are for,
Yeah.
et cetera.
And I think
The voted town meeting is for a certain sum of money. The project, Jeremy won't be signing a contract until the entire sum is available, and
Yeah.
whether through grants.
Yeah,
Other funding sources.
absolutely. The motion is.
We need to make sure people don't think that that can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. The motion at town meeting will be nothing, the town doesn't contribute any funds until there's certification that there's sufficient funds for the whole project. Okay, so let me offer a couple thoughts, and then we should probably wrap this up. So I'm a big fan of the project. I really like the vision and share, Doug, a lot of the things you said about, what it could do for the town. I also share the concerns about, the number and, 800,000. I think I'd second what Shelley said, that I think whatever this committee says, 800,000 town meeting, I think that would be a big lift. Maybe it would go, hard to predict, but I think that's a really big number. So, I don't know anything about the fundraising world to know, what the scope is there or grants. If there were a way to, do something that would bring that number down, reduce sticker shock, I think it would make it easier for people on this committee and also probably for town meeting. Then just a couple that's, I think, kind of, I'm trying to guess, sort of how might, given comments, where might this committee land and what might it take to get, a positive vote from this committee. A couple other very specific things. I think it'd be really helpful, there was a lot of talk about, the accounting and the 200 here and the 200 there. And Laura and Jeremy and I did a quick accounting and came up with something a little bit different. So just getting clarity on that, I think would be super helpful. Won't repeat what we did because I'm not sure we got it all right, but just getting that accounting with exactly, with X dollars of fundraising, what would the need be? And I guess this comes maybe to Marion's point about the fundraising and grants. And let's suppose the town committed 800,000 in the way that we've talked about. If then, so I think the select board is going to consider whether to include this project as one of the earmarks to ask the state for. I don't know if the select board will do that. If they do, I don't know if that would ultimately happen. But let's suppose it did, and the state came up with $100,000. We'd have to think about how that would affect. If that was sort of an unexpected thing, then would the 800,000 drop to 700, or would that be additional funds available for the project? So I think there's maybe a little bit of thinking of how to manage that, along with what Marion was talking about with, what's the best strategy for getting granting organizations to feel like they're getting a big bang for the buck and contributing. I don't know what the best way to do that is, but it seems like, maybe there's some different ways to talk about that and sort of clarify the plan.
Great. Thank you.
So I would just end with a really big thank you. I don't know, we've been at this I wasn't keeping careful track of the time.
Sorry to take so much of your time.
No, thank you for being here and doing this. Thank you for your backup behind you. And, really appreciate the willingness to engage in a lot of conversation and questions. If there's follow-up that'd be helpful to do, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
We'll be back at the public hearing in 3 weeks to, kind of, and again, it's a much more structured kind of thing than this.
Right.
But we'll be back then for
If we
another
have
round.
follow-up on the items that have come up tonight, should we just get them to you, Dan, and you'll distribute them to the group?
If you get stuff to me that you'd like to go to the committee, I can absolutely, very happy to do that.
Great.
So thank you for really contributing to a really thoughtful, important conversation.
Great, thank you all. Thanks very much.
Yes, thank you, Egon.
Thanks, Egon. Thanks for
Thank you. It was
slogging
nice to
through.
meet you all. We'll talk
Yeah,
soon.
good to meet you. All right. So believe it or not, we still have more business to do. I was going to propose a 5-minute break if everybody's good with that before we do IT stuff and then the assessor things.
Oh, that's right.
All right. So it's 9:46. Let's come back in about 5 minutes and then we'll pick up the other bits.
I wanted to thank Hugo because he's on the clock, just for the record.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know, I was gonna, yeah, I know.
You gonna keep this on through your break?
Yeah. I'm afraid if, yeah, so, just so I don't end up with lack of continuity, recording's still on, Zoom is still on, and all the rest. And we'll be back, for everyone in Zoom, we'll be back in 5 minutes.
Jana.
Or you might as well.
Sure, I mean, whatever, however you'd like to handle that is great.
Just take them home.
Well, it might be possible.
Or they could, Laura just said, could they go to the library? Would there be a space there?
We will be actually putting a display, one of the display cases downstairs. I will.
Okay.
So why don't we take them?
Are we taking them?
Yeah.
You're taking the draw?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I see you like yes.
My son is. Such a big project. Do that at the numbers, you would think that they wouldn't be like, oh, so $100,000. That's why we can. Yeah. I don't know. That was like the biggest thing. You're asking for over $1 million. 800, which, is just like a number. And it's like, you don't really have you should have that down to the dollar. This is the most complicated thing you can imagine. This is the level of planning that this has. I don't have a lot of confidence in this project from the beginning. It's that's my walk away from this whole conversation. It's like, yikes. It's a nice project, sure, but
things like this, it's just outside my area of expertise.
Oh, I just realized.
Huh? Yeah, I just did my chicken scratch, so I was like, okay.
And I'm not going any of anything till you know what I mean? Fundraising till you know what's gonna happen. But they don't have to pay
I mean, I don't know what it is, but,
it's already going strategy work as this. So could it be used for something else? That's not what the board is asking. The board is asking for this.
the other thing is, on the one hand, you hate to sort of put this in together and then, on the other hand, and I'm using it and.
Well, but somebody has to come
Right,
forward.
and so. Right, so the question is.
But some, like historical society.
What do you?
Or whatever, but like just a, here's a straw man.
I don't think there's any.
What it would.
Well, like, I don't know.
Because they
Right, because they said this
Somebody
is
said,
no.
no Sherborn is essential. Wells,
Well, she was asked to.
The Natick Museum or any other museum like.
Well, I think by you guys.
So
You guys are saying.
I don't know what it's like. I don't know if there's like people there. I don't know.
There's the 11 that you said.
Maybe yeah, then like you'll bring the third grade class over.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm gonna totally get hypothetically, but I don't have like a sense of.
To some degree, like I'm really just my argument is well, geez, the surrounding towns have this and we don't, and it was kind of weird. It's like, oh, very good, we should do something. But like, it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be like, this like, not that it was necessarily. It could be more, like go with these, but it's like, it's a nice space that they've designed. This nice architecture. It's just like, I mean,
Just such a farce.
this stuff is all in storage. Literally just take all the stuff out of that room in the library that is climate controlled already and put everything in there and put up a sign.
Well, I think from that perspective, I don't know if it would have the same appeal as
Well, right, but I mean, like,
but there's gotta be some middle ground.
but I mean, that's the thing, like, that's $0. So it's like,
What'd you say? Right, like, I've seen it and I've seen it.
Right.
Right, God, I've seen it. I'm reading the fail all the time.
Where did everybody go?
And they went home.
Yeah, my wife will go over one time because she's found some things in our property she wanted to. Just like, that's it.
Right. Yes.
All right, let's get going again.
Good.
8 minutes.
Okay.
All right, we are back. Let me turn my camera on. All right, we are back. So I think we're next going to come to information technology, and Klaus Ullman is going to do this from Zoom. And I think you're going to walk us through both your operating budget and capital requests.
Hi guys, can you see me okay?
Yep, and I can share documents or you can either way, whatever you prefer.
Either way, can you guys see that okay?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, first off, thank you guys again, not only for your time, but obviously support. I know it's getting late. I'll try to run through these. And it really just put a couple slides together to highlight some of the primary drivers for this year's budget requests. And then I'll finish with just a quick highlight of the 3 capital items that we're putting forth for this budget cycle. So just a couple of words, in terms of, where we're going with IT here at the town. We're really working this year to expand our focus on both the security and efficiency. We spent the last couple of years really trying to consolidate a number of the services and needs across all the different towns. Prior to that point, and it was really sort of scattered and managed at an individual department level. So, again, with this town support and the support to both the advisory and the select board, we've obviously been able to do quite a bit of work over the last couple of years to really consolidate that. And now we're trying to continue to refine it and put some additional focus primarily around the security, and then also maybe some cost savings efforts. So for this year, we're adding a couple of things that we're really trying to expand on the cybersecurity awareness as well as the abilities of our systems. Although we've done a really good job, that's an area, as you guys probably are all, individually aware, that continues to change and requires some additional systems. We're also looking to improve our network infrastructure overall. Again, we've done a fantastic job with that over the last couple of years, placing a focus on really upgrading a number of the equipment in the different buildings. This is really, part of the request as far as the capital items go to continue that improvement process and really finalize the swap out of two of our oldest pieces of equipment. We're also trying to refine the alignment on vendors and some of the sourcing. We've actually done fantastic with that overall and been able to achieve some really good pricing. We're continuing to work towards try to align some of the contracts that had previously been done individually. The Rico copier type thing comes to mind that, you know, a lot of that was sort of initially set up at an individual department level. So we're really continuing to try to align that now that it falls under a single budget. And the last is, you know, I'm happy to say that we were again this year awarded the Cybersecurity Awareness Grant, which gives us the ability to leverage a number of systems for both training and just awareness on the town staff level about different cybersecurity vulnerabilities and, you know, different things that could impact the town, you know, if we're not careful. So a couple of just quick items of the key drivers of the budget. You know, we are looking to add as a capability a Mimecast system, which really allows for additional cybersecurity and threat protection from our email systems. This is probably the area that we're singularly the most vulnerable point. And so, you know, as we continue to see the cybersecurity areas expand and change, this allows us to continually keep up with that. There's an added bonus here too that it allows us to add an archiving feature, which we don't have a well-established process for right now. So this archiving will certainly help in a variety of different areas. And that comes with that system. So it's about a $9,000 increase on a line item per year. We're also looking to ask for an increase in both the phone and internet service fees. I'll talk a little bit about this as well at the end. But we're just seeing in general an increase in just costs of the services, both for the internet and for phone systems across the town. So this is really just to right size the line item for next year's budget based upon what we expect the spending to be, not without taking on any additional services. So we're not expecting to expand any internet or phone services currently with the vendors that we have. Very similar fashion, there's been an expansion or an increase in the software licensing fees that we've, you know, had to absorb. You know, part of that comes from just a year-over-year cost increase, which we sort of expect from our primary vendors. The addition to is that we've also had to take on some additional licenses as we've, you know, added additional email addresses or capabilities across some of the different committees or town boards, as well as different staff and personnel that have come on over the last year or so. And then the last one is really just, again, some right sizing in terms of improving our data and backup protection services. Obviously, that's fairly key to the functioning of the town itself. So as we continue to see the overall data footprint of the town expand, so does, of course, the fees that go along with that. So we're expecting an increase of about $1,000 for that line item this year. So again, just a quick review on the numbers. You know, we talked about the $9,000 increase in cybersecurity, about a $2,400 increase on the internet and phone services, $4,500 increase in software licensing, and about a $1,000 increase in our data and server backup capabilities. All of the other line items for the IT budget for the town either had a negligible increase or decrease or stayed the same. So again, these were really the highlighted drivers that impacted the budget for this coming cycle. So I guess the next couple slides I had really talked to the capital item request. So Dan, I don't know if it's worthwhile me just stopping here and seeing if anybody has any questions or comments today.
Yeah, let's take a break here and then we'll go on to capital. I was just gonna offer the observation that, you know, while this is a decent percentage increase in the budget, in a way, not really surprising in that some years ago when the town moved to set up an IT department, you know, initially there were some sizable increases as costs from other departments got merged into IT to do some consolidation, to do some of the things you said of taking advantage of better pricing by doing some consolidation. And also, I think in anticipation that the town had a fair bit of work to catch up in terms of security and performance and so on in terms of the IT function. So just wanted to share that observation. Other comments, Shelley?
I just had a question because I know you mentioned that we have the grant funding for cybersecurity. So that would not cover any of these additional cybersecurity, the 9,000 in addition.
Yeah, actually, that's correct. And I can go a little bit into what the grant itself is. So the grant is technically a non-monetary grant. It's a cybersecurity awareness grant that is provided by the state. And so that gives us us as a town access to a variety of services, inclusive of a pretty extensive training platform for our town staff. So that's really where that grant comes from. You know, now if we didn't have that grant, that might be a service that we would look to employ or to create a line item for. But we've been fortunate that we've been able to receive that grant, and then so not having to ask for additional funding.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, just a
Go ahead, Pat.
So, Klaus, can you tell me, mostly because I'm keeping the minutes, can you tell me, like you go over again what that grant allows us to do or covers in effect?
Sure. Yeah. So the cybersecurity awareness grant is something that it's provided to us at a state level, and it gives us access to primarily what's called the Know Before platform. It's an enterprise grade platform that's pretty standard across the industry. And it provides for individual and sort of corporate level training around cybersecurity awareness. So it really allows individuals to sort of be on self-paced training modules that provide additional awareness as to how to avoid, some of the more common threats like, malware or phishing attempts, spam emails. And, again, we're really just trying to provide that level of service to the town staff that use the systems every day to reduce any individual vulnerability across the town.
Okay, thank you.
What else? Other questions, concerns? Okay, let's go on to capital, Klaus.
Excellent, thank you. So there's 3 technical capital request items. I will point out real quick that I know that in something we've talked about in the past is that there is technically that threshold of the 25,000 that we traditionally sort of weigh or we leverage that threshold and when bringing items to the capital item budget request. That said, I like to sort of be transparent as to sort of where we're going with some of the items. So some of these obviously do not reach that $25,000 mark, which, totally understandable. So the first one is the server and computer replacement program. This is something that we did this past year and was a major event for us as we continue to replace fairly aging equipment across a number of different departments. So we were able to replace 2 servers and about 4 different desktops or laptops this last year. This would continue along that program to, again, replace 2 additional on-premises servers and 4 additional workstations or laptops for various staff or department head members. Many of the equipment that it would be replacing are well in excess of 10 and sometimes even 14 years old. So, well beyond the life expectancy of what we would typically want for the equipment that's currently in service. Sort of a little item to note, I know Jeremy could probably speak to this as well, is, we always go back and forth in terms of what we want to do for our general replacement of IT equipment. It is not something that we technically have built into the current line item budget. It is something that we've been doing over the last couple of years via the capital request, funding. That certainly, will continue to be a conversation whether or not that's the right way to go, but it's something that we are trying to continue from last year. The second item is the network switch upgrades. There's two core switches, one at the police department and one at the town hall, that are reaching their life expectancy. And as a matter of fact, they're no longer manufactured or serviced anymore. So it actually provides us with a certain level of risk if there is a problem or an issue with that physical equipment. So we are looking to upgrade both of those units with a capital request of $30,000 for free cash to replace those. And that would be the final two pieces of equipment that we would be required to replace for probably a number of years. And so, that's really what that funding is for. The last one is for a town-wide phone system upgrade and replacement. In a very similar fashion, the existing town-wide phone system was put in a little over 10 years ago. And so, we're although it is still functioning, we have had a number of requests to either expand or add some capabilities. We've been unable to do so based upon the current equipment that we have in place. As a matter of fact, we're actually seeing some increase in service costs on a monthly basis because of the equipment we have, that it's costing our current vendor slightly more to continue the support of that, as the manufacturer itself has discontinued support of our existing phone equipment. So this free cash request, the $20,000, would be for a wholesale replacement of the town-wide phone system. There is some advantage to this, and I do want to sort of point to the last item, that with the changeover to the new style of a completely cloud-based and a voice over IP system, we expect sort of a return on investment of about 3 years, because we're expecting about a $7,500 reduction in cost for the phones and phone system on a per year basis. So obviously, even after the 3 years, we would continue to have the benefit of that cost savings. So I think, in my sort of impression, this is definitely a worthwhile value to not only go to a higher grade system, something that has quite a bit more capabilities that we currently have, but obviously comes with an expected cost saving over time.
Right. Thanks, Klaus. Questions, comments? Ben, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So, Klaus, thank you. On the last townwide phone system upgrade, do you have a guess on the expected life experience of this system? I'm just thinking, after 3 years, are we going to be rolling in dough at the tune of $7,500 a year?
No, it's a great question. Yeah, so the major portion of the change of this to go to a cloud-based system is exactly the sort of the gist of the question, right? So the going to this new style reduces the total amount of equipment that we would have on premise, really, because we would basically be down at that point to just physically the handsets on people's desks. Right now, we have both the handsets as well as some switch and additional phone gear in each of the buildings across town. So that equipment effectively goes away, which really is the benefit of us and the cost savings. The equipment also that is part of this proposal is a vendor agnostic type equipment, meaning that the vendor that we're going to be using for this and the phones themselves is actually slightly different, so that the phones that we have, we can continue to use regardless of what cloud-based phone vendor or system that we want to employ down the road. So if over a number of years we're not happy with the phone vendor that we're using or the cloud vendor, we can make a switch without having to change equipment. So there's definitely an opportunity to continue having that savings over time. Now there's always going to be, I guess, opportunity to sort of expand and see if there's any additional needs down the road. But assuming everything is static the way we have it now, I would expect the savings to continue.
Follow-up question? Sure. So after 3 years, you're just going to trim your budget $7.5K just because you're saving this money, right?
I would like to tell you that is going to be the case. That is my expectation. Let's say that.
Thank you. We won't hold you to it, but we'll remember that.
Yeah. What else? other questions for Klaus? Okay, good. Klaus, that was great. Thank you. Thanks.
Excellent,
for,
guys. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate your being here to talk about it. That's super helpful.
Absolutely.
All
I'm
right.
glad the clock on the wall is working well.
Yeah, yeah. All right, thanks, Klaus. See ya.
Bye, guys.
If you can stop your screen share, that'd be great.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, good. So everybody's good with that. We'll go on to the next one. And this is our last item for the night. So Robbie Alford, Director of Assessing, I think you're here. If you could walk us through the couple of capital requests that you have.
The first one, good evening, everyone. The first one is the personal property exemption. This is something that I believe it came out back in 2002, 2003, where you can, a community can decide to accept exempting up to $10,000 in value. Basically, this is one of the things when people say, why can't you run the town like a business? This is one time when you can actually look at doing that. The Board of Assessors have voted to set $7,000 for the exemption. And basically what this would do is it doesn't make sense that we would send out a bill for less than what it costs us to bring in. If you look at the sheet that I sent, there's two at the top that I think one is $265 in value and one's $280 in value. And that is, it comes out to like 66 cents a quarter. So it would stop having to send out bills like that.
Let me just.
Can you explain that to me?
Did you want to see? Did you want to see the
Article's really brief.
The warrant article is
Okay,
Very
fine.
brief.
Robbie
I thought there were
had a
numbers.
spreadsheet. Robbie had
All
a
right.
spreadsheet that I could
The
see.
spreadsheet.
14. He sent a spreadsheet too. This is the article.
Referring to, if I can get that share.
The Excel
Can
spreadsheet?
I ask you like how much money that in total that effect that is?
18 accounts is $612 in taxes.
So you're saying it's not worth the $600?
It costs more than what it would, than what we bring in.
Yeah. Robbie, could you just say a little bit about the extent of the analysis done? So if I'm looking at your spreadsheet, I think 501 is, if I get it right.
Those are the use codes.
Yeah, one of these is corporate, one of these is non-corporate. Like how comprehensive was the analysis that you did of, to make sure that we captured every property, every business that might be in this category?
I ran a report in the system of all the properties and the values.
That's
And,
all?
no, this is just the ones under $7,000.
And do you have a sense of whether these are the kinds of businesses that these are? Are these
Some of
mostly
them are mom and
farms? Are these
pop
mostly
stores.
farms in town, small, somebody running a home business or?
Some of them, yes. Some of them, they're incorporated. So there's a lot of things that are not taxable by us because they pay the state. So it's that I purposely didn't put the names on.
Oh, I get that.
Because really that's not, when I look at things, I don't look at the owners.
Yeah.
Even though I get accused sometimes of putting value because I think people can afford more in taxes, but that I don't do. But this is what these accounts cost. So the high one is the line 19, the 6590, which comes out to $109.26 a year.
I mean,
The low
I'm,
one is the 160, which comes out to 265 a year.
I haven't jumped into the numbers. I'm just, casual observation. I'm surprised that there are so few. But casual observation and I'm just surprised that there aren't more.
Yeah, the other accounts are all over the 7,000 and higher.
What's the total amount
The total amount of what?
of businesses
Paying personal property.
and
There's
personal property?
44 accounts currently, I believe.
Okay.
Okay.
And what's the threshold? 7,000 is what he wants the threshold to be?
7,000
Robbie,
is
could you
what
hear
the
that?
Board of Assessors voted for, yes.
7,000?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Stephen.
Couple of questions, Robbie. How is value determined?
A couple of ways. One, each business is supposed to fill out a form of list and send it to us. Also, inspections are done of the property.
How does the people who supply the form of list, how do they determine value to put on the list? Is
A
it
lot of
book
them,
value?
they
Is it
have
fair
their,
market value? What is it? Do you know?
no, it's, a lot of them, it's purchase price. So it'll be what they purchased for it. But we go into all the cost manuals and stuff and we would look up different things. We go on the webs, the internet. In one town I worked in, there was someone that made us, it was hard to value because these people created a special item for them, for their business. So it was a little harder. So you had to get something close to it. And what we did there was we worked with them, and most people are pretty forthcoming. Especially if you ask the questions the right way.
Robbie, what's the
they don't-
rule? If I was to fill out the form, what is the rule that I would follow to apply a value?
There's directions on the form. So usually a lot of people, they have their accountants fill it out. Some people fill it out themselves. If it's a small, like these little accounts, they probably have chair and whatever they paid for it. If they got it used, if they bought it at a store, they put down the price.
Okay, thank you.
Nora.
Sorry for all my questions tonight.
Questions are.
Out of principle, I think they should still be taxed on it. And I'm like, don't like taxes, but I just think it sets a wrong precedent. Oh, it's too much work for us to fill it out. So, I mean, $600 is $600 as far as I'm concerned. That's my take.
Yeah, okay. Other?
Well, and I mean, that's one way to look at it. Just it does, from a financial standpoint, it doesn't make sense that you would pay more than what you bring in.
There's a lot of things we're doing here that we're paying more than what we're bringing in. So I think it sets a wrong precedent, if you ask me. It's like, oh, that's just more work we have to do. No, I'm not saying this pointedly to you. I wish you were on camera too, by the way. But
Well,
it's just-
unfortunately, I was sick today, so my laptop's at home. I mean,
Okay.
at work. So I
No,
had
that's
to use
okay.
my own, which has no picture.
Okay, to me, I just think it sets a wrong precedent, in my opinion. And maybe that person, that's all I'm gonna say.
Yes, extend.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to each community how they want to go about it. If they want it to be taxed, I mean, that's fine. It's a losing battle, but.
Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, so, Robbie, thanks for hanging in there so late with us.
Yeah.
So what are the costs that are being saved, not collecting the $600? Is it postage? Is it your time? What is, what is it? How are we saving the $600 if we do this?
Well, it's time. It allots time for other things, especially now where the assessor's office is now open 8 to 4 instead of 8 to 12. So where we used to do a lot of our inspections and analysis in the afternoon, um, some of that we're gonna try to do, but we're also gonna have to pay some consultants to do also. So it helps to save there also.
So it sounds like, Robbie, if this were approved, it would be, as you said, kind of time saving and freeing up time for other things rather than there'd be a line item in the budget that would drop by $612.
Correct.
Yeah. So I guess I just, haven't had a chance to think really hard about this, but I think I have some sympathy for Nora's position that it's just hard to
We're drilling
pick a
everybody
number
down.
pick a number and have cutoffs as compared to just, there's a tax on personal property and it is what it is, and people who owe that pay it, but obviously open to being persuaded otherwise. Laura, go ahead.
Just curious, how much are you collecting from the other component of the 44? So roughly 25, if there's like 19 here or 18 here, so 25, 26 that you would be collecting from. How much money is that?
I don't have that with me. Let me see
Roughly.
if I can look up
Just
the
order of
LA.
magnitude.
I don't know. I would have to look at the LA4.
Okay.
Let's see.
Annual inspection they have to
We're
do?
talking 18 bills.
Yeah.
Until the 44.
We're talking about 18 bills. Just send the bills out for $600. That's $600 of money that's owed to the town.
35 from the other, whatever, 26, $25,000, and okay. I can kind of see it.
Shelley, did you have a comment?
I concur with Nora.
We all know that I get a little grouchy at about 10.
Well,
No, it's
Did
just,
that happen a couple
don't-
weeks
yeah,
ago?
I mean,
Sorry.
I don't know.
All right, so other comments on this, and then we should move on, given that it's late. Kind of looked like you had something to offer.
Yeah, I'm just gonna weigh in and say I sympathize with your sympathy of Nora's position.
Well, it's really Shelley's sympathy with my, whatever. All right.
Very sympathetic, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Sad,
So,
yeah.
so given that it's late, let's keep going. So Robbie, I mean, my sense is there's not a huge amount of support on the committee for doing this. Appreciate the effort and the work and the analysis, but I don't know that at this point, I mean, again, advisory won't make any decisions until our hearing on the 22nd, but for what it's worth, at this point, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of support.
Yep, that's fine. I mean, I always
Yeah.
bring it up. Most of the communities I've been in, they've approved it.
Okay, that's helpful
So
to know.
I mean, it's up to the community. You
Yeah,
know,
okay.
if the community likes to spend more, they're able to do that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and again, appreciate the analysis and bringing it forward.
Well,
Okay,
the time is our, okay.
so all right, so I'm gonna stop the share here. And Robbie, why don't we get on to the CAMA software piece?
Sure. So as I was trying to call and get some training on the current system, or trying to get onto the current system, I was informed that this is an older version.
So Robbie, maybe just back up and
It's
just give
at
a little
four
bit of background and context of what these systems do and I'm not sure everybody on the committee is gonna be up to speed on that.
This system is where all the information we have on the properties in town, it's how we set our values by creating the tables and adjusting the tables. It's how values are set.
Okay.
And is this a piece of software or what exactly is this?
It
It's-
is software.
And there's a package that the town, I think called Patriot, or by a company, Patriot Systems or something.
It's
that-
Patriot right now, yes.
The current software that the town's using.
But is this software we buy or license, or is it a service we pay a fee into?
We are licensed. We pay a fee each year. Right now, it's at just under $11,000, I believe.
Okay, keep going, please.
Okay. So one thing I have found usually when different software companies do upgrades to their system, they support the old one for so long, but at some point they're gonna say either you got to get on the new one or you can run the old one, but there's no support for it any longer. So when I was told that it was as old as it was, I started looking around. And that's when that I learned on the Monday and the article had to be in on the Thursday. So the board met Thursday morning and they had voted to request $80,000. I had gotten one quote at that time from Vision, one of the companies I'm sure that would apply, would send in a proposal that was at 75,000. Pam told me that Vadar would need to do some programming, no matter what system it was, which would cost between 15 and 2,000. And then there would be additional fee that if we end up with something other than Patriot, to get the sketches, we would have to pay for the sketches as well.
And that all together came to about the 80,000.
Correct.
I guess I've got a question off the top. So Patriot did the current system. I'm guessing they would be happy to sell the town an upgrade or the new version. Any idea how expensive that would be and how that would compare to the quote from Vision?
I do not at this time.
Am I right that they would have that, one could?
I would expect them to apply as well.
Yeah, okay. Are there other vendors out there in addition to Vision and Patriot?
There's a couple of other vendors. I don't know if they would necessarily apply. There's PK, but they don't really do our area. There's the system that basically when the state camera system moved away, that took over. It used to be Colair, but I don't know who the new company is now. And I don't know if they would even apply. From my understanding, they've been backing away. Patriot and Vision right now are the two biggest software systems in the state.
Okay. It would certainly be interesting to know what Patriot, where they would be and whether it would be similar amount or a different amount. So I've got more questions, but let me open it up for others. Stephen.
Thank you. Robbie, did you involve Klaus in any way in conversation about this software solution?
He did, in
I
fact.
did not,
I'm
no.
still on. Well, we did speak about it, and it's something that I've been aware of in the background. Yeah.
Have you
Yeah,
been
I
able to?
guess Wendy had looked at it back in 2023. And at the time, there was some issues with Patriot. I did talk to Klaus as far as we'd be looking at going with the cloud instead of a server. So we did have some conversation with it, yes.
So on that point, to refresh my memory, I may not have this exactly right. So the vision would be a cloud-based system. And am I remembering that correctly, that a year or so ago, the town purchased a couple servers to house the assessing data for the Patriot system? Am I remembering that right?
There was a single server that was purchased, and that actually was purchased with the funds for that, server and PC replacement capital item last year.
Okay.
I did work with Wendy on that. Part of that was just the existing server that the previous software had been on was starting to fail, and we were running into some problems. So we tried to quickly rally to do that.
Okay.
Prior to that point in time, just to, clarify the background. So Wendy had done an evaluation of this. I think it was in 22 or 23. And at the time, the Patriot Group and that software package that we have currently still using, they also have some updated version, including a cloud option. Based on Wendy's evaluation and discussions with, I believe, some other towns, there were quite a few challenges and problems that came up as a result of switching to that version. So her decision was to stick with the existing version that we did have. But we sort of knew that by doing so, we would have to sort of revisit this down the road. And obviously, I think Robbie's, really having his opportunity now to sort of reevaluate and make that decision. But I certainly tend to support stuff that is sort of cloud-based, as it, reduces some risk from us on an equipment basis and sort of having things to maintain well beyond just the software.
Right. So is that server primarily being used for assessing data, or is it being used for other things as well?
It does have multiple roles, but I would say the primary role is for the existing Patriot database and software architecture.
And so if we were to switch to a cloud-based system, would that server just sit idle, or would it be put to another use, or could it fill in for one of the servers that you had suggested replacing in your capital requests?
That's exactly my thought process. Yes, it would absolutely not go to waste. It would continue to perform some functions. We would probably maintain the data on it sort of for a longer period of time, but I would sort of shift its use to pick up the slack of some other equipment that we have slated for replacement.
Ken? Stephen, go ahead. I'm sorry if you still.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Robbie, do you know what, I have two questions. Do you know what the annual fee is for ongoing licensing of this product?
Or it does state as far as vision what it would be. It would be, I believe it's like 9,500.
Okay, my last question is, and I don't know how this works. Are there other departments that should be or were consulted to achieve some kind of integration, to be sure that this met their needs as well? So, you're perhaps looking at this from your department lens. Does the data in this feed other departments? Well, could it?
Possibly, because it does have, they do have some GIS components there. So it might meet some other departments' needs as well.
Can I just build on that? I'm aware that Heidi Doyle, the town planner, has a capital request in for some zoning and mapping software. I know there's been an effort to do GIS mapping of, I think, wells and septics and so on in town. Any coordination with those efforts, just in the sense of not ending up duplicating something that or doing something that wouldn't mesh well with what one of those other efforts has underway?
I mean, as far as that would be an additional layer that would be on with the GIS. So right now we're with People GIS, and I don't think we're looking at leaving it right now anyway. The GIS portion that would come with either Vision or Patriot comes with the software. And it's part of it. So I mean, it's something that we would be able to use also. I haven't spent a lot of time looking at the GIS section for Patriot of Vision because if this doesn't pass, then I don't want to waste that amount of time.
Right. I'm just wondering if, you know, this were done, if this would suit any of Heidi's purposes, or if any of the town planner's purposes, or if any of the things that she's contemplating might be beneficial for this effort. I don't know the answer to that, but it just seems like there's some parallel efforts proceeding.
I have a question.
Shelley, go ahead.
I just had a question. Who uses the software? You would use the software, and then would your assistant use the software?
Yes.
And then who else would use it? Because I know this looks like this would be licensed to up to 5 users. Is the
It
cost
can
per
be
user?
up to 5 users. That's their minimum. With the licenses, 5 users. So there could be other people. We could just put them on where they could be view only. But also, you know, with the website, it goes on the website. So, I mean, people get it for information as well.
Yeah, I mean, Patriot has a thing where you can go put in a parcel number and get a download of stuff.
Okay.
Nora, go ahead.
Okay, so that was my question too about 5 users, so
I
that's
just
the
wondered if it
minimum,
would
so
reduce
that's
the
what my
cost
question was. I use Patriot, so again, I'm just trying to understand, like, is it really that broken? And how much is it just to extend it? I mean, is Patriot really that bad for you?
Well, we got 13 abatements this year. 6 of them were because the way Patriot's set up, it shows living area. It uses the basement as finished basement as living area as well. And as you know, Nora, below grade is not considered finished living area. So that has been an issue. My concern is, you know, if we don't look at doing something, I mean, we wouldn't look at doing it until after the tax bills had gone out. So we wouldn't look at doing the upgrade until December, basically. But if we don't do it then we probably wouldn't be able to do any kind of upgrade for 2 to 3 years because of the reval. And I would never do an upgrade or a conversion during a reval because that just creates too much chaos.
So but you can parse out basement, so if it's only a matter of that, I don't understand.
Yeah, but it doesn't do it that way.
Okay,
But also too, it's an older system. They've got a newer system, and what I have found is eventually they stop supporting the old systems. I
And then
don't
you
know
said it was
when they
how-
might do that, but hopefully they wouldn't do it before we were done with the reval and everything because that would create some major issues.
And how much is Patriot to renew for next couple of years or 5 years or whatnot?
I haven't heard from Patriot yet.
I would think that would be important to hear before making an investment like this.
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to make sure we have the money that we go out to bid and send out requests for proposals so that we make sure that we have the best system for the town.
Yeah, just the challenge of figuring out what that dollar amount would be. Yeah, and currently, the Patriot, we're paying them about 11,000 a year for the licensing fee.
Right.
Yeah, okay, okay.
And
Penn,
that
to
would
you.
probably increase with any update or conversion for Patriot.
Right, right. Penn, to you.
So, question for Klaus and then a question for either of you. So just double checking that if we do this upgrade now and free up part of the usage of the server, we would still be, even with that, we would still be buying the servers that are proposed in Klaus's capital plan.
That's correct.
Okay.
What I
And-
have slated that money to use is servers outside of the town hall.
I didn't quite follow that, Klaus. If you could just expand on that a little bit.
Oh, okay. So we have a total of 14 on-premises servers across the town. So the two primary servers at the town hall have been replaced with the previous capital request. So if we were to move away from the software or the assessor's use of the existing server now, that I would not expect that to impact the ask for the current capital request.
Do you think it might in a future year mean that there would be less need to, maybe not for FY26, but in some subsequent year? Or
I do not believe so. No, I mean it's honestly a very small portion of the total cost of Patriot, and the software aligned with that is an order of magnitude higher than the cost of the equipment.
And my question, I'm just, thanks, clarifying Patriot. So we now have I'm not a technical person, so we now have in the physical system with Patriot. And Robbie talked about moving to a cloud system with Vision. Am I right in assuming that Patriot also has a cloud version?
Either way, we would look at a cloud system.
Oh, we don't have a cost for the Patriot version.
Yeah, I think not at this point.
Okay, just so.
So I don't know if this is a question for Robbie or for Klaus, but it sounded like a couple of years ago when Wendy evaluated this, she thought there were challenges with going to a cloud-based system. Is there a sense that the cloud-based systems have improved enough that those challenges wouldn't be a big deal now?
I do not believe it was the cloud-based system. I believe it was the Patriot upgrade that was the issue.
Yeah, that's a tough question for me to answer. I wasn't really involved at all at the evaluation of the software, and I can't really speak too much to the physical software itself. I've just sort of basically provided the support for the on-premise equipment that the software is housed on.
Understood. Other comments? Other than it's Stephen.
It is late, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It seems like a big cost to go into Vision is the conversion. I'm a novice at this thing, but without a quote from Patriot, we're kind of working in isolation here.
Right.
I don't know if you went to a cloud-based system with Patriot, do they need to go through a conversion process? Or is it merely a migration and an updated version of the software? But I do get the sense that going through a software selection process, as you said, was you got here on Thursday or Wednesday and you asked to produce something on Thursday. And I think it's a decision with far-reaching implications over many, many years. So I guess my thought at the moment is to kind of slow it down. And I'm not quite sure why you would even, I don't know when the revaluation is going on or what the impact is or why you would delay for 2 years even after the revaluation. So it's a little bit confusing for me at the moment.
Yeah, I guess I still have some outstanding questions as well in a similar vein.
Well, when you're doing a conversion or an update, you want to do it until December or January. So if we didn't get the money this year and we looked at getting the money next year, it would be at December or January of the following year, which would be December 26, January 27. I believe 27 is no, I'm sorry, 28 is the reval. So I would not be looking at doing the conversion in the end of 26, beginning of 27. Because it's just not good practice to do that when you're going into a reval.
That is to say that if the reval's in 28, late 20s, that the,
So if we didn't do it now, we wouldn't be looking at doing it until December or January of 28 or 29.
okay. In the vision quote, in the large paragraph on the first page, there's the parenthetical that says, we'll need to obtain the electronic data in ASCII file format along with unambiguous file layout and existing field cards from the town. For sketches, the town will need to provide sketch data in non-proprietary traverse string language format which shows pen movements for each sketch shape and links each shape to its associated sketch model. I assume that's the transition cost piece.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because most of the companies, they have a copyright on their sketch programs.
And is that likely to be seamless or is that messy and complicated?
Yes. It's usually pretty seamless, but I mean, there always could be an issue. So
Okay.
I wouldn't say that, yes, it would be absolutely seamless. Because when you're doing a conversion or an update, there can always be an issue.
Okay. So I just wanted to jump back on the timing and make sure I've got the timing right. So if this were approved this year, then it would be done like in December 25 or January 26. If it were approved next year, it could in principle be done December 26, January 27.
No.
And that would be too close to the reval?
Yeah, because come January, basically, we're in reval.
I thought the reval was 28, not 27.
It is, but all the work's done. Most of the work is done from January to August.
Of the prior year, so most of the work's done from
Prior
January,
fiscal
August
year.
of 27.
I'm sorry.
So I'm just trying to do the count here. So if this were approved this year, right, the money would be available July 1. It could be done December 25 and January 26.
Correct.
If on Stephen's point, there's some more analysis to do and some more investigating to do, this waited a year, and it were approved at town meeting a year from now, then it could be done December 26, January 27. And I was just trying to figure out if that's too close to a 2028 reval year.
Yeah, I wouldn't look at doing a conversion at that time because of the reval year.
Because if there's a reval in 28, most of the work would actually be done in 27.
Right.
Okay, got it. Okay, thanks. Okay, anybody else?
Just my only other question
ahead,
is just, have you used the Vision software before?
I have.
Okay, so like in your previous, where you previously worked, maybe it was Vision, or was it a different type of software?
It was Vision.
Okay. Okay. So it's
Mike.
review
Um,
preference.
So you've asked for a quote from Patriot, and you said that you haven't heard back?
I have not, no.
Okay, I mean, it just sounds like there's interest in getting that quote, if you could follow up with them before the public meeting, that would be, it sounds like there would be a lot of interest in getting that.
And Shelley, did I cut you off? Did you have more?
No,
You sure?
no, I think
Just
that's my
trying to be
question. No, I'm good, I'm
careful, but
good.
not-
No.
I agree, I concur with what Mike said. It would be great if we had that information going into that, like what the cost differential would be. It would help with making a decision, I think. Yeah, it just would be helpful. We don't have anything to compare it to, so. It's hard.
We have the apple.
Yes, we need the orange, that's right.
And
Thank you so much.
Has capital budget said anything about this?
No, I don't, we have not, we still have a meeting that we still have to have.
Is that meeting
You and I,
scheduled?
or in general?
In capital budget committee.
Is that been scheduled or not? yet?
I looked this week and it has not
Not
been.
yet. Okay, all right. Okay, so Robbie, thank you. I think we've exhausted all the questions here and gotten certainly way past my bedtime, maybe for others as well. Thank you for sticking around late. Klaus, you too. Appreciate that and appreciate the input. I think you got a sense of concerns on the committee, and if there's more information before the public hearing, I think that'd be super helpful. All right, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
All right. I think we are done. Anybody with a?
I'll make a motion that we
yeah,
adjourn.
thank you,
Yes,
Shelley. I
at
was looking at you.
10:53.
All
Okay.
right, quick roll call. Shelley.
Aye.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Aye.
Ken.
Aye.
Stephen.
Aye.
And I might as well. Puts it to 7-0. Doug dropped off at 9:49.
Okay.
Just if you want to get that.
How'd you do that?
Magic. Magic.
Shall I-
Okay, we're done. Thank you, everybody. Thank
Thanks.
everybody
Right.
on Zoom. I'm gonna shut things down.
Shut it down, okay.
I will in just a second. See everybody next time. Thanks.